Welcome in, guys. We're going to talk some NFL today. I'm with my boy Randy. I'm Cade. Randy, introduce yourself, brother. Go ahead.
What's up, guys? I'm Randy. It's first time on the podcast, first time potting at all. Gonna go ahead and have a potty tonight.
Yes, sir.
Crazy, bro.
Nah. No, just keep.
We're gonna cut that.
cut that. Nah, but
No.
we're just going to go division by division for the NFC first, and then on a separate video, we'll make an AFC breakdown with kind of some team previews on that. Give some predictions, and yeah, man, let's just get right into it with, I think, our consensus number one team, the Detroit Lions. Do you want to start it off, brother?
Yeah, man. They finished in the top 4 last season, and looking at this season with all the pieces they added, I mean, they fixed that secondary. That was the biggest probably issue they had, and what really killed them in that NFC Championship game because they had the lead and they couldn't hold on to it. They couldn't stop the pass, and tackling became an issue. They just got worn down in that second half. But looking at the team coming into this year, man, it's just that offense. It's all about how they set up that physical ground game, and that really gets the rest of the offense going. They have that offensive line, and then be able to counter with the Gibbs speed and athletic ability. That's really just what gets the offense going. And then from that, they just set up the pass game, and it's all just countering off each other. So really the drive is the powerful run game with Montgomery and that offensive line, but play calling is just huge, man.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. I wrote down in my notes, I had to touch on my Jahmyr Gibbs pick from fantasy last year. Yeah. I reached heavy on him in like the third or second round, and he ended up winning my league after like a rough start in the beginning. But
really,
like you said, that offensive line and how they complement each other is just unbelievable. That play action with Jared Goff and that way the run game sets up the pass is unbelievable. Doesn't help or it doesn't hurt that they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, probably one of the most reliable receivers in the league.
Yep.
And then one of my breakout guys for this year is Jameson Williams. I've been high on him since he got drafted out of Bama, man, and he's fun to watch, man. If he can fix those drop issues, he has some issues going last year with kind of like over the shoulder catches and stuff like that. I don't know, he had like some awkward drops that you just think an NFL receiver should make. But yeah, man, pumped to see him. What do you think on the defensive side? I know they had a huge pickup in DJ Reader, but
DJ Reader, Marcus Davenport, and so many pieces added to the secondary. And just one more thing to touch on that offense, dude.
Yeah.
So this is a thing that good teams do is they establish an identity on offense. You know, having a back like Montgomery and that offensive line, it really just sets up everything else because you can wear a defense down that way. And when people can't really key in on anything off that because they can't stop that powerful run game, which is what Dan Quinn built the team for. It's the identity. It's what he is. He built the team in his own identity. And it's just everything sets up off that. And that defense, too, they're trying to be more physical and be able to stop the pass because they just didn't have the talent to do that last year. Talent, injuries, whatever it was just kind of a struggle for them. So they added some length and size at corner with Carlton Davis, Terrion Arnold. And they still have other corner, too. I forget the name off the top of my head, but he's going to be on
Rakestraw Jr.?
No, the corner they got from the Niners last year. Off the top of my head, I can't remember his name, but he's going to be on, I think, PUP to start the season, then come back. So they have 3 deep at corner and perimeter guys, and then Amik Robertson to come in and play the slot from the Raiders for them is really solid. And then now they're not going to have to play Brian Branch in the slot as much. They're moving him to safety, you know, and now they really got guys to be able to match up and play defense however they want to. And they're hoping that by bringing in Marcus Davenport and DJ Reader, too, that they can kind of win with 4 more. And if they can do that, man, it's going to be tough to beat them because they drafted linebackers. They've drafted a lot of their defensive linemen as well. And then just to add guys on top, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. I like we kind of talked about it at the gym when we were talking about this podcast. But that Brian Branch move to safety is such a big move in so many ways. It kind of frees him up to be more of a sideline to sideline guy instead of being kind of cornerstone into a corner role. I think he's honestly better in that Kyle Hamilton role where he's kind of field roaming and just chasing the ball down, being a playmaker, man. So, yeah, is there anything else you want to touch on for the Lions? I think Our predictions are kind of similar. If you wanted to start with the predictions, man.
Yeah, I think they're going to be the best team in the NFC. I mean, the only other one that's competing with them is a couple other guys from the East, and then also the one that got them last year in the NFC Championship game. But I mean, in terms of what we're looking at, it's going to be tough to beat them. You know, they got a solid identity on offense. They got players and speed to counter off of the power run game with their play action. You know, they got speed at receiver, and that's kind of what they want to do is they just want to counter off that identity. And with the defensive being able to stop the pass, hopefully better this year. I mean, the only question I have is with size. I mean, if they have the guys, if their run game does get stopped, if Montgomery gets hurt, that could be a problem for them, you know. But that offensive line being as strong as it is, they're still going to have the stability to run the ball all year long. And I don't know how many teams are going to be able to beat them.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. Yeah, I think that was pretty good review with them, kind of like an overview. Set over to the Green Bay Packers, man. If you want to get it jumping again.
Yeah, man, I want to like them a lot more than I do. I mean, me and my family are from Chicago. There's no bias in this. I actually thought they were.
Yeah, right.
I thought they were right up there with the Lions in terms of team talent and quality. But I mean, when I looked more at it, I wasn't as impressed with the team as I thought I would be. They added Xavier McKinney in the offseason. They're hoping that Christian Watson can be more reliable for them and be dependable to be there. But, I mean, A.J. Dillon's not going to be there, but they brought in Josh Jacobs. And I don't know, man. I don't really see the juice in Josh Jacobs to be able to fit that type of offensive scheme that head coach wants to run, you know. And it's just – I like some of the guys they brought in behind him, but I'm just looking at what are they going to be as an identity on offense, you know, because they got all these guys that they can rotate in at receiver and then rotate at running back. But, you know, what's the coach's name? I want to say his name.
LaFleur.
LaFleur, yeah, LaFleur. I keep forgetting the names off the top of my head.
Good.
But he wants to run the outside zone and really just get his guys on the edge and then be able to counter off that, you know, and it's just – I really like a guy like Emmanuel Wilson for him to do that, but I don't know how well Josh Jacobs is going to fit into that. And I guess we'll find out as the season goes. But team talent-wise, I was kind of underwhelmed by offensive line as well.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. I think that Josh Jacobs bit you had is maybe that juice is kind of gone. I don't know if it's gone necessarily. I just think with how the running back landscape is now, the Raiders just ran that dude into the ground when he was over there, man. So it's
those rookie deals, man.
Yeah, they that's the play now for teams to just get a guy on his rookie deal and just freaking feed him for a ton of carries and then deal him off for a pick. And I mean, he's in a good spot. I don't know if he could have landed in a better offense in terms of just complimentary football, like kind of like the Lions did.
Yeah.
I think Jordan Love is the real deal, man. I know people are kind of hesitant to say that. They're kind of like, all right, let's see it in the beginning of the year. But I think he's the guy. I think Christian Watson, he had that hamstring issue where
that was so crazy
thing with like the AK where his hamstring was like at 30% less than the other hamstring, and it was a wild stat. I can't remember exactly what was going on, but
20% difference in muscle.
Yeah, 20% difference. Yeah,
from one leg
so you
to
got
the other.
It. Yeah,
he did his in-body score, bro. He got his in-body score from Mountainside.
Yes, shout out Mountainside. But
shout out Mountainside.
Yeah, but I think he's going to be dynamic, man. If that hamstring is back to even, I think you saw what he was like with Rodgers that year. He was explosive. He was a playmaker down the field. They got a ton of weapons at receiver too. I want to highlight Dontavian Wicks here for a second. That dude is a monster. I feel like if he's in a different system with more opportunities, he'd make the most of it. I'm curious to see if they give him the opportunity, if Jaden Reed or Dobbs or Watson's hamstring is not back to normal, if he goes down again.
Bro.
But, yeah, let's head over to the defense to see what's going on over there. What are your thoughts about them?
If you don't mind, I'm going to hit on one more thing.
No, yeah, dude, go ahead.
That Christian Watson, it's that skill set that he has. You know, he's huge and runs fast. I mean, you put that on an NFL field and you got a coach that knows how to maximize skill sets like LaFleur does. I mean, he gets the most out of his guys, and I feel like they would motion him and they would get him on the move. They would run jet sweeps with him, and they get play actions and let him run free and just route guys up in the back on the back end of the defense, man. It's just I think if he can be fully healthy, I mean, he's a legit threat. And he just overwhelms defenders because of his size and speed. So, I mean, they got a lot of guys that can rotate in and out, and just they need to establish that ground game though, and make sure that Jacobs can really do that, because he's a new guy and we haven't seen how they've used him yet. But that defense though, I mean, dude, defensive line, they got 4 first-rounders up there that they drafted and are all homegrown. And then also Quay Walker, first-round homegrown pick. Jair Alexander, first-round homegrown talent, But, man, I'm looking at it and I'm like, if they would just sign some free agents or trade for a few guys, they would really set themselves over the top. They signed Xavier McKinney. But, I mean, how many times did they just, pass up opportunities to sign guys when they got holes at corner? They got lack of depth at linebacker, or their safety position. They got McKinney, but outside of that, who do you look to as to be dependable and to not worry about leaving back there to cover up for the corners that, I mean, frankly, they can't really stay healthy right now. Jair was missing time. The other corner too, that I forget his name.
Eric
Stokes, yes, exactly. He misses time too. Super physically gifted guy, but I mean, we got to see him on the field. And, I mean, they blame the coaching for a long time too, but I think they miss opportunity with adding talent.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Packers have been one of the best drafting teams in the league for a while now.
For sure.
And like you said, you touched on those first-round picks on the D-line. That helps a lot. As much as people, like you said, like to add stuff, there's a difference between coming up in the league in your home system basically, and just kind of learning the system year in and year out. And man, I want to highlight Kenny Clark. He is a freaking monster down there. He kind of sets the tone for everybody, and then everyone else kind of plays off him. I love Jair Alexander. He's hilarious, by the way. He's hilarious, and he is what you want in a number one corner, man. He's safe, but he also takes chances. And you got a good compliment on the opposite side with Eric Stokes. They're very complimentary. Oh yeah. I think that's a word we're going to be using this whole kind of podcast is complimentary, because you got to play complimentary football to win games. And I think the Packers overall, man, like you said, if they can get the run game going, which they should with Josh Jacobs, they're going to be a threat. And this division is one of the best in the league for a reason. And it starts with those two teams we talked about first. But and anything else you want to talk about Packers?
Dude, Jair is one of those guys, bro, that you hate to play against him, but you wish he was on your team. Dude talks so much smack, and I mean, for a corner, bro, he's like when Jalen Ramsey was with the Jags, bro, would leave his mouthpiece hanging out just so he could talk shit to everybody else, bro. I mean, Jair is one of those guys. He'll talk before the game, after the game, during the game, and then beat your ass still, you know? And dude, he was so frustrating to see as a Bears fan. I mean, dude, he got him so many times, but yeah, it's just they have so much talent. I mean, raw talent and athletic ability that if they are coached up well, I mean, they've blamed Joe Barry for years now. And, I mean, they got him out. They got a new guy in there. So, I mean, it's just we'll see, man. We'll see. It's just going to be let coaching shine this year, really, on defense and offense, because there's a lot of talent to work with. We'll see how far that will take them, though.
Yeah. Heading over to the Minnesota Vikings. I'll let you start with it again, man. What do you got for me?
Man, not a very deep roster is what I look at. I look at the roster, and it's very top heavy. And I mean, they did the same thing even this offseason. They added some guys to kind of just fill the holes so that they at least have pieces to hopefully kind of work with on offense and defense. But I mean, you look at the running back room, they got Aaron Jones, but behind that, it's not a lot that you like or that you would feel comfortable throwing out there every down. So it's just they're relying on a lot of aging players to hopefully be competent. And, I mean, I think they were really hoping to get QB out there.
J.J. McCarthy.
They were really hoping to get J.J. McCarthy out there this year. And I think by him being hurt, they really kind of threw a wrench in their plans, and especially for it to be so early. They got Sam Darnold, but, I mean, the offensive line, and I mean, if they can get an offensive identity, that'd be great. But I mean, I think they'll get production either way. But this defense is gonna be giving up points, man. So they're gonna be chasing, and I mean, it might be a lot of empty stats, but it's just they're kind of hoping to stay afloat, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think maybe they weren't thinking about, I don't know if they made JJ the starter before or after he got hurt. I don't know if they even named him yet, but did you remember?
They were competing.
They're competing.
Yeah, they were competing, but I mean, Sam can win it, but I mean, JJ kind of looked flashy in his first game, you know, and I mean, we didn't really get to see a lot of him at Michigan, so it's just, you really wanted to see what Kevin O'Connell could do with a guy that had raw talent like that, you know, that just needed more of an opportunity. And he had weapons, too, to get the ball out. So
yeah, I think JJ was in maybe not a good a spot as Caleb Williams, which we'll talk here in a second, in terms of offensive talent around him. But he definitely had guys with, I think, the best receiver in the league, Jay Jetta, is on the outside. And then you got Jordan Addison, and when Hawkinson comes back, you got him at tight end. Those are three, like, solid weapons, and then you got a great back that can catch the balls out of the backfield with Aaron Jones too. So as much as I hate to see JJ go down, I think if Sam Darnold doesn't have a good year this year with O'Connell and that offense around him, he should be just a permanent backup in this league, because there's really no excuse at this point, man. Anything else you want to talk about on offense? Or
I mean, he's been seeing ghosts for years.
Yeah,
bro,
man,
so.
I do.
I mean, we'll see if those ghosts are still around, but I think they are, man, because they're soft on both sides of the ball in the trenches. I mean, you let Sam Darnold sit back there under pressure with Justin Jefferson. I mean, Jordan Addison's supposed to be back soon, but, I mean, anything happens to Justin Jefferson, and that completely changes everything, bro. And he doesn't have really anybody to rely on right now.
Yeah.
But you talking about the defense, too?
Yeah, head over to the defense, yeah.
Man, it's crazy to see, like, the defensive line depth when they just removed Daniil Hunter. You know, you still got a guy like who they added with Grenard in the offseason, and it's just they're hoping to kind of stay afloat with versatile edge guys, is that Brian Flores can play games with and drop them into coverage, and then sometimes rush them, and sometimes can use them as a contain. You know, it's just they're hoping to be versatile. And just hopefully they just stay aggressive on defense like Flores wants them to be, because if they're going to have any kind of success, they need that, because they're lacking in the secondary, and they just got a lot of aging guys. And then also, too, it's just they're going to have a tough time stopping the run. It's funny when I'm like a Bears fan and I'm looking at all these other rosters around the league, and I see a guy like Jonathan Bullard who's starting, you know, and it's like, I don't know, man. I really don't trust that defensive line to really do much help for him. So we'll see. But, I mean, Brian Flores is a great coach, so we'll see how he schemes them up. But they're going to have to stay super aggressive if they want to have any kind of hope, because they got to force turnovers. They got to punch teams in the mouth, or else if they sit back and let teams dictate to them, they don't got the talent to hold up.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that they did sign Stephon Gilmore, which is he's kind of on the latter end of his career. Still a solid corner, good pickup for them. I got Byron Murphy Jr., who's a former Cardinal. Very familiar with that guy. Yeah, he's solid. Shaquille Griffin's also solid. Like, their secondary, if you look at the depth chart I have up right now, it's not terrible, but then you go back to that D-line and it's like, all right, are we going to get any pressure? Because you got to have pressure, and that's what you're talking about with those Brian Flores. He's got to line those boys up and mix up some packages to rush the passer, because they don't have a whole lot of talent. They did sign Jonathan Grinner, which is actually he was a good pickup. He had a good season last year for the Texans, it was a lackluster offseason after losing one of the best pass rushers in the league in Daniil Hunter, and I think they're going to have a tough time kind of filling that void, because like you said, they didn't really go after anybody. So man,
they're going to rely all about how much pressure they can get, and I don't think they're going to be able to generate it up front by just rushing just rushing the front guys. They're going to have to send blitzes, and when you're sending blitzes, now you're leaving guys one-on-one. You know, and these guys, you don't want to leave them one-on-one. They're new to the system. They're aging, you know, and they haven't shown that they can be – you don't really have a guy on the back end that you can go, okay, we feel comfortable leaving him one-on-one, you know, and with that, and you're going to need to send pressure to get any kind of disruption on the QB. That's not a good recipe for long-term success or sustained success defensively.
Yeah. Man, I think that's it for the Vikings, unless you want to add anything. All good?
Nah, that wraps it up for sure.
All right. Let's head over your team. I'll let you take the floor with the Bears again, brother. Go ahead.
Man, dude, it's been a long time watching this team, watching all the games for 12 years. And, hey, I mean, we're saying it again. We got a QB. Said it a few different times.
But you actually have a QB this time. That's the problem. That's the difference between this and Mitchell Trubisky.
I didn't say it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I didn't say it when we had Trubisky. I said it when we had Fields. I feel like they did him wrong a little bit. But, I mean, coming in with Caleb, they're definitely doing him right.
Yep.
The guys they brought in this offseason, I mean, you can just even name the names, and it's just household guys. Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze picked at number 9. You know, how often do you have a guy like DJ Moore? You bring in Keenan Allen for a 4th, and then you add Rome Odunze on top, and then you're bringing in Gerald Everett to be a backup, not a starter. DeAndre Swift to be the primary back. It's just going to be weapons for him to get the ball out to. All he's got to do is be a distributor. You know, he doesn't have to do too much like he did when he was at USC. His last year, he was trying to really put the cape on, I feel like, a little bit too much, you know. And I think that he knew that he didn't really have the talent to win one-on-one, so he thought he had to extend plays, which he's very good at. You know, his pocket presence is it's special, you know. And I think they got a viable offensive line to allow him to trust his instincts when he's doing that. And I think if you let him do that, he's going to develop, and we'll see what the ceiling is for him. But, I mean, with weapons like this, you never know what that could even be in his rookie year.
Yeah, I like they signed, obviously, Keenan Allen and drafted Rome Odunze, which is huge for a rookie quarterback. Like, having that safety valve with Keenan Allen is going to be very appreciative, or Caleb Williams is going to be very appreciative of that. And then you got a guy in DJ Moore, which he's a stud, bro. I was watching the podcast with him and Amon-Ra St. Brown. He said that he doesn't even watch football. He said the first Super Bowl he watched was like the Rams-Bengals Super Bowl. I was like,
no way.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
I don't know. I just thought that was funny. But yeah, they have a deep running back room. I mean, I'm not completely sold on DeAndre Swift. I feel like there's a reason he's kind of bouncing around teams.
Receiving game, I feel like he's more effective. I think as a rusher, we'll see. But, I mean, I think that as an outlet out of the backfield, I like him. And I feel like he needs to be in a rotationary role, and I think they got that.
Yeah, I think, like you said, that Khalil Herbert is a very good complement to DeAndre Swift. If they want to use
100%.
DeAndre Swift in a third down role, like you said, out of the backfield to kind of pass catch and lean more on Herbert to do that inside running, I think that's a better fit for this team. But yeah, man, I'm excited to see Caleb Williams. I wasn't the biggest fan of him coming out of college, but I think he's one of the more NFL ready quarterbacks we've ever seen, and that's kind of a big statement to make. But you see this guy in like the media, and he just looks prepared, man. He just does not look like a rookie at all, which is very impressive. But yeah, man, just head over to this defense unless you want to add anything.
I want to add a couple of things.
What's going on?
In terms of this receiving room, I mean, I'm looking at a guy like what the skill sets are with the receivers. DJ, I mean, I look at these guys, and I say Rome is that X that you look for. He's big. He can run routes. He can win down the field in contested catches. He's not a guy where you need to have him open. He can win 50-50 balls. You know, you can put him out there. I think he should be the X, like, right away. You move DJ to that Z where he can run, like, those shallow routes where he can be that number 2. DJ as a number 2 would be just crazy. And the chemistry that Caleb is building with Rome, I mean, early on, you saw it in the preseason, and they've been hanging out all offseason. Same flight to the draft, crazy type of chemistry they got going on, and it's not forced. And I think Keenan Allen, he can just hang out and be that slot guy. People talk about how he got fat in the offseason, man. He put on 20 pounds. He's a big slot. You know, you got 2 guys who play the perimeter, and then you got Keenan Allen who can play the slot. He can go ahead and be that crucial catch guy when you need him in the red zone or on a third down, you know. You could run routes in the middle of the field, and I think putting on size like that's really going to benefit him in that role. So, I mean, I like guys. They have change-up all over the place in terms of the running back room and then also the skill sets at receivers. So, I'm excited to see what OC cooks up.
Yeah, I'm pumped to see it too, man. I haven't seen the Bears good since that Jay Cutler game when he was on the bike. He was trying to. What was that playoff game?
That was my first game I ever watched, bro.
Yeah, you're telling me about that. That's
funny.
That
was the first game that I ever watched, man. I was glued. I was hooked after that, bro. I thought they would be back.
Jay Cutler on the bike did it for you, huh?
Dude, they were in the NFC Championship game, bro.
I
was like, man, they got to be back after this.
Yeah.
Little did I know.
Yeah. Hey, but hey, we're so back now.
Yeah, so back.
Let's head over to the defense now, man. What do you think? What are you thinking?
Man, I think they're an offseason away from being elite. I think that Eberflus's trademark is turnovers. He's proved it in Indy. His 3 years there, I think he was like, top 5, top 10 in turnovers every single year. The last 3 that he was there. And, I mean, the talent wasn't special there. You know, the defensive line, they had DeForest Buckner, but – I mean, he doesn't need that. He makes the defense simple. He has defined roles that he has in it where he likes guys. Then they end up putting up production in terms of turnovers, tackles, and just ball production, you know. So it's looking at the defensive line. They got guys who can rotate. They drafted Austin Booker. They traded for the DM from the Seahawks who has sack production, who can rotate and not be the guy.
Yep.
And then also, too, I mean, Montez Sweat, he can create pressure on his own. So I think defensively, I think they got guys who can rotate up front. But I love the secondary and the back 8, man. It's just the linebackers and the secondary. I don't know about safety health now. I mean, Jaquan's had trouble staying on the field, makes a lot of tackles. He's around the ball. But I think that he needs to stay healthy. Kevin Byard needs to stay healthy, which he's done throughout his career. But, I mean, in this offseason, there was times where he wasn't available. So I'm a little concerned about that. But cornerbacks, man, that's where they shine, really. I mean, they have Tyreek Stevenson, who's just physical, big. He was getting his hand on the ball in the second half of the season, too, and I think he's got some confidence. And Jalen Johnson, dude, we already know what he is. He was All-Pro last year, Pro Bowl. And then I think the guy that's going to break out, really, though, is Kyler Gordon. I mean, dude's ridiculous athlete. You see all those clips of him flipping off one foot, doing backflips. They call him Spider-Man. You know, it's like I think in the role of the defense that he's in, he's bound to break out as long as he can stay on the field. So secondary, stay healthy. I think they're bound to make force turnovers.
Yeah, man. I think you touched on the cornerbacks. Man, I don't know if there's a better tandem, especially after this season, man. With Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson, they are 2 dogs, man. They're really
People
this Bears. Know. Yeah, they're about to know because Tyreek Stevenson's about to lock up anybody he comes across, and then we obviously know Jalen Johnson is one of the most disrespected corners in the league, and he's elite, man. If you put on the tape of Jalen Johnson, he's a blanket on anybody who's covering. So if you watch this look at this Bears team. Like I'm looking at the depth chart right now, it's not too shabby, and it's definitely above average. But like you said, I think they're missing like a piece or two to where
D-line.
Yeah,
D-line, they're missing some guys. I think they're an offseason away there, but I love the way they drafted and kind of filled holes in the back 8.
Yeah, I'm impressed with what Eberflus has been up to, man. I don't want to move off to your team too quickly here.
No, man, I think it kind of wraps it up. I think they have a formula for success, though, because, I mean, they got offensive playmakers, and with the defense and the way that Eberflus sculpts things to create turnovers, I mean, you're just going to be feeding the machine that is the offense. I mean, as long as the offensive coordinator's got a clue, which I think he does from early signs in the preseason, I mean, I'm excited to see if they can all stay on the field, what this team really looks like. And, I mean, they got some softer teams in the first 3 weeks, but we'll see.
Yeah, man. Can I get a record prediction?
Record prediction?
Yeah, just for this team. I'm curious because it's your team. You know the most about this team specifically. What do you think as a realistic Bears fan?
I know a lot. The over-under on them is 8.5.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of just hanging there because it's rookie. It's a rookie QB. It's Chicago. And, I mean, I think people are kind of questioning Shane Waldron after Njigba's talking smack about him in the offseason. Yes. And I don't know. Personally, I see a formula for success. And, I mean, as long as they can have the run game be a sweet complement, I think they're going to be a tough offense, especially with the defense forcing turnovers and feeding them. I could see 11 wins. I mean,
really?
I don't know if they got more in them than that, but I think that if they do hit their higher end, they're going to be around 11 wins, though.
Yeah, I think on their higher end, 11 is actually solid. I was going to say 9 to 10 just because they're still working stuff out on defense. You never really know. Obviously, Caleb's one of the most NFL-ready quarterbacks, like I said earlier, but still some unprovenness there in the NFL, which we'll have to be seeing. But I think 10 wins is actually realistic, and that's what I got them at right now.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that wraps up the NFC North. Let's head down to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC South. What you got on them?
Man, they're kind of running it back in a lot of ways, and I don't think that's the wrong thing. I think they did a really good job drafting young talent in this offseason that kind of replenishes a lot of the guys that or a lot of the holes that they're going to need to develop in the future. I think they like Baker Mayfield. I think they like the receivers. I think they love the defensive line, especially in the front seven, the way that head coaches be able to scheme their guys up, because Todd Bowles has really been known for his pressure and known for his run defense, and I think they should be able to repeat that. But offensively, I mean, I think they're going to be very similar to last year. I don't really see too many changes, even with OC leaving. I think a lot of the similar usage and a lot of similar play we're going to see again.
Yeah, I have my questions with this Tampa Bay team. I don't think Rachaad White's it's not even really an opinion. He's not efficient at all when he does get the ball on the ground.
No.
I do like Bucky Irving as a draft pick. I think he's so electric. I remember watching him at Oregon. I was like, dude, this guy, I feel like he's just after contact, man, he just keeps throwing those legs forward. I think he's a good pickup. They got Chase Edmonds on the IR too, coming off that. He was solid for the Cardinals when he was there. Yeah. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, like you said, they're running it back, and it's not terrible, but it's also you got to take into account Mike Evans is getting up there in age, Godwin up there in age too. They got Cade Otton. He's a pretty decent tight end. One of the best left tackles in the game, and Tristan Wirfs. But that Dave Canales leaving, I think, is going to be the headline for this Buccaneers team looking back next year after this season's over.
Yeah.
Because I think he was very key in kind of unlocking Baker Mayfield and getting him on track, because Baker Mayfield was decent, but he was not the Baker Mayfield that earned his extension last year without Dave Canales. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's I think he's going to be dearly missed by this team, and I think there's a little regression there. But man, like this division is still not great, and I know the Falcons upgraded. We'll get to them in a bit, but they're still in contention for 8, 9, 10 wins again. So
yeah,
what do you got on their defense, man?
The defense is just going to give them a baseline of competitiveness. They'll be able to hang in games. I think they lost Carlton Davis, but also too, I mean, it just starts up front. If they're able to stop the run, Bowles has got a pass defensive package to where he likes to pressure. He knows how to scheme his guys up, and they got Antoine Winfield on the back end, to where when you have guys like that, and you can leave him in certain positions, or you can match him up with a tight end, and he's able to kind of eliminate certain players. I mean, it's a breath of fresh air to be able to look at a guy like that and go, okay, we're safe here. Let's go ahead and work around everything else, So they paid him really well. Obviously, they should have, but it's just they got stability in the front seven, and they got a baseline of competitiveness to where I trust them to be able to hang around in games. We'll just see if they're able to kind of steal some bigger ones to really push into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a middle-of-the-pack defense. No one really on here. Obviously got Vita Vea. You got the best safety in the league in Antoine Winfield Jr. They got an aging Levante David, but he's an ageless wonder. He's kind of like Demario Davis, where he's like
captain.
How is that dude is still
Davis
playing?
Too.
Yeah, how is that dude still playing at this high of a level? But yeah, he's getting up there, and his production's falling off a little bit, but it's not the point where you think with his age. Yeah, you touched on it, man. I'm not really high on this Buccaneers team. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, okay, middle of the pack, 8 and 9, 7 and 10 type team to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
they're gonna be around that. I mean, I trust Bowles to be able to create some pressure. They got interior guys. They drafted their D tackle last year to be a kind of 1-2 punch. You can call it that. But, I mean, I think they complement each other very well, and hopefully on later downs they can create some pressure. But their edges are kind of not the same as they were in years past. They let Shaq Barrett go. So, yeah. I mean, it's just we'll see what Bowles can do with them. But I think that he's got a proven track record of being competent on defense.
Yeah. I know you had a lot to say about the Saints, man. Let's hear it.
So when I was filling out what is their winning formula, I just said what did they do? I mean,
yeah.
you look at the receiving core, and it's like it's Olave, and then undrafted Rashid Shaheed. Yep. And then beyond that, it's just
Cedric Wilson Jr. and Bub Means.
And what is it, like A.T. Perry? I mean, I'm sitting here on a podcast right now, and these are NFL athletes. But, I mean, I'm just saying, in terms of NFL caliber receiving rooms, this doesn't stack up, you know? And I feel like they're about 2 years late from moving on from Alvin Kamara, and they've been loyal to him, and that's great. But, I mean, I just think that with the QB like Derek Carr, when you put him in a situation like this where you got guys like Lucas Patrick starting on offensive line for them, and you got all these other guys that are just nobody you look at on that offense, we have to prepare to stop him. That's going to be tough, you know, and I don't really see much of a way where they're able to put the ball in the end zone. And I mean, the whole name of the game is just score more than the opponent. So I think they're going to have a tough time with that.
Yeah. You touched on that offensive line. They did draft Talisa Fuaga, who's going to be their franchise left tackle, which it was a great pick. But yeah, man, I think Olave deserves so much better, man. I'm a huge fan of Olave. He's so talented, and
you seen the clip of him right this offseason?
Yeah, he's.
Was there a moment where you really felt like, wow, we're gonna be special? Nah, not really.
Yeah, he's honest, bro. I love him. He's got that it factor about him. There's something about those Ohio State receivers, man. But yeah, Derek Carr is. I'm a huge Derek Carr hater. I don't think he's. I don't think he's a good leader. Sure. I don't think he's great quarterback. I think he had the most time in the pocket to make decisions last year, and one of the highest checkdown rates. Yeah. That means that dude is just terrified of anything that goes. Dude, he's terrified of everything, and I'm a big fan of the Rattler pick, man. He's an Arizona guy. Went to Pinnacle, went to my high school, and not to glaze him too much, but he's way more talented than Derek Carr, and I would not be surprised if he is making a case for being a starter by the end of the year or even next season. But, yeah, they got an aging Alvin Kamara. He obviously
Jamal Williams behind him.
What are they doing, man? Got ancient running backs over here.
I don't know. And, I mean, Derek Carr really hasn't recovered since that ankle injury or since he got called out for crying in the middle of a game. And, I mean, he hasn't beat the allegations, bro. And, I mean, it's just carried over into years where it's just, I don't know. He looks scared in the pocket, you know, and they just don't got guys to put the ball in the end zone, and that offensive line. You got rookie, but, I mean, beyond that, it's very questionable. Yeah.
Let's head over to that defense now. Talking about ancient wonders, you got Cam Jordan on the friggin' D-line, man. That dude is, is he, 80? Still decent. Not really. Kind of mid at this point.
Him and Cameron Hayward, bro, both of them are just hanging around, still being competent. But it's just you're slowly seeing the degrading play over time, and it's tough.
Yeah. This secondary, like I touched on DeMario Davis, he's another ageless guy. I don't know. This Saints team, I was telling Randy earlier, this Saints team has just been so mid for so long that they, like after that questionable DPI call, the no call.
Oh, yeah.
What was that, the divisional round?
Championship game against the Rams. Yeah. I remember like 19 or 19.
Something like that. Yeah, I think it was 19. But he after that, man, they just been mid. The definition of mid for so long, and I think we talked about this, and I don't want to step in your point, but they're one of the worst teams in the league, man.
Oh, yeah,
and
for sure.
I'll let you get into it. What do you think?
I mean, we used to talk about the Bengals back in the day. Back in the early, I mean, I say back in the day, we're young. So, I mean, back in the day being like 20, I know, right? Yeah. Back in the day being like 2014, 15, 16, 17. Andy Dalton.
Yep.
I mean, you look at what that Bengals team looked like after they had those few years where they were highly competitive. And, I mean, I feel like the Saints are right there. You know, they're in that purgatory phase where they got a lot of aging guys. They got a QB who can't win you games, but he can be good enough to where you're not bottom of the league. And, I mean, you hope Rattler can get in there at some point this year. But that defense, I mean, they got guys that are competent, like we were saying. They got DeMario Davis. They got Cam Jordan. They've drafted defensive linemen. They still got Marshawn Lattimore. Tyrann Mathieu is still there. The defense is going to be able to keep them in some games, but I mean, are they going to be able to force turnovers to hopefully give more opportunities to the offense? I don't think so. I mean, I would bet against that. I don't think that there's a lot of belief in the QB, and when that's the case, I feel like a lot of teams kind of fold up shop a little early, and this could be a team like that. Unless Rattler does something exciting and gets some buy-in in a little more, I feel like buy-in is going to be very low. And Olave, speaking like that, it's kind of an indication of it.
Yeah, I like this. There's some young guys on this team. I'm looking at the depth chart right now. You got Rattler, you got Cooley McKinstry.
Paulson Adebo.
Paulson Adebo is really good.
Nice and long corner, man. I like Adebo as well.
Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, he's not necessarily young, but he's still nasty.
I love Lattimore.
Olave. You got their tackle I mentioned, Luis Fuaga. I mean, they got a young core, man. It's just like, can you guys start just a little bit of a rebuild? Can you guys tank just maybe one season to get back on track here?
No.
I will touch on. Yeah, they won't. they're going to be mid forever, I guess. But
purgatory, man. That's right there.
Yeah, they had Ryan Ramczyk is a big loss for them. That
for sure. Yeah.
I think when he went down, I think that kind of drew everyone's attention to this depth chart and how mid they were. And yeah, he's a big loss, man.
That offensive line, there's just so many guys that left in there. They had Ryan Ramczyk, Andres Pete, Max Garcia, their center, and they try to replenish it with a rookie. But when that many starters leave, you're just going to start throwing guys in there. And when you're just throwing guys in there, you're going to get something like what the Giants had last year, where it's not a capable situation for a consistent offense.
Yep. But yeah, man, let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of offseason additions, including the biggest free agent signing in Kirk Cousins. What are your thoughts on them?
Man, I think they got some pretty high upside in terms of playing in a soft division. They got some guys who I think are waiting to be unlocked on offense. They brought in some major stability pieces on defense where they kind of struggled a little bit last year in their pass defense. So, I mean, one guy I was really bummed to see go down is Rondale Moore. I really wanted to see what he could be as a 3 and a gadget guy. I think the Cardinals kind of stashed him and didn't really utilize him. And to see them get him for Desmond Ridder, who really didn't belong starting, I mean, I was really bummed to see that. But, I mean, when you look at the guys they do have, Kirk with the weapons, Drake London, Darnell Mooney. I think their 3 is now Ray McLeod, which, all right, you got a gadget guy, and hopefully he can provide some spark with the ball in his hands. But I'm really looking at Bijan Robinson. And Kyle Pitts is there as well. Hopefully he can have better production with a capable QB. But Bijan, though, is, I think, the key to this offense, to where I didn't really like him coming out of the draft last year. I think there was too much talk about his rushing upside. But in terms of being a receiver in the way that Le'Veon Bell was a couple years ago, I think there's that type of play inside him that's kind of just waiting to come out with a QB that can get him the ball.
Yeah, you touched on it. Bijan is another guy. He went to Sal Point here in Tucson, and I know a few of my buddies that played against him, and they said it was just like a blur. That dude is a freak of nature, man. His cuts.
When he puts his foot in the ground and goes, dude, it's like dude's just sliding. They're on skates.
Yeah.
They can't touch him.
Yeah, they cannot touch him.
Speed, man. I feel like that speed, he's just missing like a gear. You know, he's missing that high-end speed where, like, a guy that's as built as him and as high pedigree, you're like, why isn't he breaking away some of these runs, I think he's missing a little bit of that speed, but so was Le'Veon Bell, and when Le'Veon Bell was put in the right positions, you saw what he did when he was in his prime for a couple of years.
Yeah, and a lot of heat for that Michael Penix draft pick.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't think it's dumb at all. I think if you can get 2 or 3 competent years at a Kirk, even if he does shatter his leg at 40, or tear his Achilles, like Aaron Rodgers did, fourth play, turning 40 or 39 or whatever. I mean, he's going to have a long time to learn this system and develop a connection with these guys. And I think Bijan is one of the most dynamic running backs that we've seen come out of the draft, man. I'm a huge fan of him. I think Drake London's another guy. I think he's a lot of untapped potential with him. talk about untapped potential. Darnell Mooney, bro.
Yeah, I was
he's
talking
a
about
stud,
that.
bro. He's a stud. You touched on it, but he's a stud. He's been in a system with a quarterback where he wasn't even the number one option. So just think about how underutilized he was in that with Fields and everything, with Fields not being able to throw the ball down the field.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, they got Kyle Pitts too. I mean, this receiving room is stacked. There's no shortage of talent on this offense.
Offensive line is
stacked
up too.
You got Jake Matthews
and added for years, and they're ready. They're ready to go off. I want to touch on Darnell Mooney one thing really quick though. Yeah. So the thing with him is there's a lot of these like slimmer receivers coming in the league. They're about 5'10", 5'11", maybe 6 foot. And they're 170. And you see guys coming in the league like this and playing in places like Chicago. He's always wearing the sleeves. I don't think he likes the cold. He's playing on grass, not turf, when his game is all about speed and shiftiness. And I think that in an offense where it's in a dome, turf field, Kirk with a great deep ball, I think that an offense like this is very conducive to success for him. And I think that, honestly, he's going to have a huge year, especially not having to be the one, I mean, for years, his first couple of years, he was in Chicago. I mean, you had a year with Allen Robinson, a couple of years where he was, I think 2 where he was the one. And then he had a year with DJ Moore, and you're like, okay, he's the 2 now. But I think they would put him in the backfield as a fullback, and they would have him be a lead blocker. I don't know if he pissed off the coaches or what he did.
That's your team, bro.
Yeah.
That's your team.
Man, Luke Getsy, Raiders, there you go.
Yeah.
But I don't know what he did to piss off the coaches, but for whatever reason, they didn't put him in a lot of great positions, and I think he's got a way better situation now for success.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. Let's move over to this defense now. They did sign Matthew Judon, which is, I think, I want to hear your thoughts on this defense first, but I also want to hear your thoughts on Judon. What's going on?
I really do like Judon. I mean, the Ravens who brought him in originally, you look at the Ravens and they have a lot of the stereotypical pass types with them where they're just big, powerful, and push the pocket type of guys to collapse it, But I think that Judon's a lot more skilled, and I mean, we saw that in the Patriots. The Patriots are very similar in terms they like the big, powerful edge rushers to collapse. But I mean, I think here he's going to have to be the guy, and there's other guys as well. Like I think they have Lorenzo Carter, Ebiketie. I mean, they have 2s, rotational guys, but it's about Judon and Grady Jarrett, and the linebacker situation, it's whatever. They don't really – linebackers, there's not a lot of teams with talented ones. But the secondary I like, though. Yeah,
secondary. Signed Justin Simmons, which I was just begging the Cardinals or someone – literally anybody to pick this guy up.
You don't like the one safety they got?
Jesse Bates?
No, Brent. They got Buda Baker, and then the other Jalen Thompson. You don't like Jalen?
I do. I just think you could have gotten Simmons on like a cheaper deal.
Yeah.
And we also, I mean, it's fine. I didn't realize Taylor. We'll get to the Cardinals, but we got a guy in Dadrian Taylor Demerson. I don't know if you know that name.
You have to get into him when you talk about them.
Man, He's like a freaking young Buddha. We just drafted the young Buddha. We'll get into it later. Anyways, back to the Falcons. We're Jesse Bates, one of the best safeties in the league, man. He is so impressive. I think him and Justin Simmons, I think they really locked up that back end on that defense. They do have decent corners. I like A.J. Terrell. But other than that, I think this defense is good. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong at all. But I want to see what Matthew Judon looks like right now because he's coming off an injury. He's getting up there in age. I do want to see if he can make a decent impact on that pass rush, man. This defense could be nasty. And especially, they were one of the best defenses last year until freaking Desmond Ridder. You talked about that trade. Literally, no one won in that trade. Desmond Ridder got cut, and Ronald Moore, he tore his ACL or something?
He broke his leg, whatever.
Yeah, broke his leg, something like that.
Yeah,
but yeah, man. This defense is one of the best in the league for the first 8 or 9 weeks last year. I think with the complementary football, we're using this word complementary a lot. If this offense can just give this defense a break and they can scheme some stuff up for them, I think the Falcons are by far the favorites to win the division. I don't know what you think.
No, I mean, this team has dudes to put the ball in the end zone. They got guys in the secondary, and on the secondary, I feel like is going to be able to make some more plays on the ball this year to force turnovers, because you got a guy like A.J. Terrell you can leave on a receiver, feel okay about, like I was saying. Football is all matchups, you know. When you got a guy who's more talented, more skilled, more experienced, like a guy like Terrell, who's had years in the league now, you can leave him alone. With safeties to back that up, I mean, if you can get some pressure from Judon and Grady Jarrett up front, I mean, I think that the Falcons are going to be putting up points, and I mean, if they can get some turnovers, you're just going to keep feeding the offense opportunities, and that's a good formula for success. I trust Raheem Morris as well, too, as a coach.
Yeah. He had to explain that Michael Penix, that video of when they took Penix, and the owner was like, basically, what are we doing? What are we doing, dude? But I just thought that was hilarious. But, yeah, we'll move on. Unless you good on the Falcons?
Yeah, we're all good on the Falcons.
Right.
They're going to be a really good team this year in the NFC. I definitely think they'll win the division. But, I mean, also as well, we'll see how well Kirk can kind of hold together against the better teams, you know, because I don't know if it's nerves for him or if it's he just doesn't feel I don't know. It's just something about him in these big games where he just kind of folds. I want to see if he can overcome that in a team that really invested in him to kind of back him. I mean, they drafted a QB, but hopefully we can see him kind of stand up tall in some of these big games when he's got these many guys to rely on offense.
Yeah,
and
man.
a defense to back it up too.
Yeah, Big Kirko. Big Kirko don't play, and we'll see if he kind of lives up. I do expect him to make the playoffs, and I do want to see Big Kirko come out and start slinging that rock to his skill guys, man. I think that's what everyone wants, especially if you're a Pitts and Bijan fantasy owner last year.
Yeah,
that must have been awful with the Arthur Smith shenanigans going on over there. But we'll move off the Falcons now. Let's go to Carolina now. What are your thoughts on that, man?
Oh man, I love the Panthers. I love the Panthers.
Do
bro.
you?
Oh yeah, bro. I mean, they give the Bears everything, bro. I'm a big fan of the Panthers.
I was gonna say.
I'm praying on their downfall, but I mean, I'm a big fan of them. But yeah, I mean, well, what is their winning formula? Starting Andy Dalton. I mean, people are not they're gonna be afraid to say this, but I mean, I don't like Bryce Young. I don't believe he's big enough or going to be able to be durable at the size he's at. And I think when the Seahawks and Panthers played last year and you saw Andy get in, everyone's, it's whatever. It's just the Aussie finally called the good plays. No, dude. It's just when you have a QB this size, this is a huge belief I have. When you have a QB this size, you can't sit back in the pocket. I mean, he's 5'10", 5'9", 180, 185.
Maybe
imagine
he eats a sandwich that morning. Yeah.
Imagine being that size, and then Calais Campbell, 6'8", 300-pounder, just comes barreling down on you. Your ribs are shattered. Bro.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just now you're playing the QB position in a preservative way. And you have to get out of the pocket to see beyond the offensive line because these dudes are standing up in front of you after the snap. Yeah. See, this is the thing with Bryce. He can recognize a defense pre-snap. But Jesse Bates took advantage of him in their Week 1 game last year because once those offensive linemen stand up, Bryce thinks he's got it. But then he slings it to a spot. When you're playing DBs who know where you're looking pre-snap and then you can't see over the middle post-snap, now you're thrown into coverage that you didn't even know was happening. I think his post-snap's going to struggle. His post-snap recognition is going to struggle just because he can't see over the line straight up. I don't think that he's going to be able to see it. And, I mean, he's very athletic, elusive in the pocket. He's a gifted athlete. He's got a pretty talented arm as well. I just think the size limitation is something that he's not going to be able to overcome. I mean, you look at a guy like Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's a little different. He's a way different athlete. He's way bigger, way more sturdy and durable. But a guy that's so frail like Bryce, I was surprised he held up last year, honestly. I didn't think that he'd be able to hold up, and they improved the offensive line, got him receivers, but it's just going to be so hard to scheme up offense when you have such a big, glaring weakness at post-snap reading a defense, seeing over the middle of the field, and a need to get out of the pocket and get him on the move.
Yeah, I do agree with you to an extent about Bryce Young. I know we kind of talked about this. I think this is one of the the main talking points that me and Randy were disagreeing about at Mountainside. But Bryce Young, man, I feel like he's a number one pick for a reason, man. He looked great. I just think if anyone is gonna fix the atrocity that was the Panthers' offense last year, it's gonna be Dave Canales, and I think that move it's already a huge talking point, but especially if the Panthers have like a overachieving season this year, which I don't think you think that's going to happen, but I have faith. I like the pieces they added. It's going to be a huge talking point, man. I think if they just get Bryce Young out of the pocket and get him out of that pre-snap, post-snap shenanigans that you got going on where you can't see, which I know exactly the play you're talking about. You literally don't even have to disguise coverage after the snap. You literally just hide behind a guy that Bryce doesn't see you, and then that's literally it.
You can't see over the line, man. And that's not a knock. It's nothing personal. It's literally just like, dude, have some 6'3", 300-pounder stand in front of you and try to throw a ball over his head.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the defense, that's just the offensive lineman. And there's defenders like putting their arms up. You can only quick game, roll out, screen pass so much.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to have to be able to sit back and pick a defense apart from the pocket. And I don't think you can scheme up enough to help this big of a deficiency where I don't think he can see. I literally don't think he can see. And I worry that it feels like he's one hit away from just like breaking a leg, breaking an arm. Like he's not built to be long-term NFL QB.
Yeah, I like the Jonathan Brooks pick. I think he's just so electric out of Texas. But, man, they got two good backs. Say we want about Chuba Hubbard, man. He performed last year towards the stretch. He was pretty efficient. He wasn't obviously jumping off the tape, but to compliment Jonathan Brooks, I think it's a good pick or a good fit for them. They signed Deontay Johnson, which, I mean, he's definitely an upgrade, but to what extent? I think the Xavier Legette pick with his southern accent, man, I love those clips of him talking. Have you seen it?
Already,
man.
I use Cetaphil face wash. I use Cetaphil lotion.
Yeah.
And then I love Cetaphil.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what he sounds like. He's a stud though, man. You can say what you want about his accent, but man, that dude's electric. I think he's going to be a good gadget guy. I think he can grow.
I love the weapons.
Yeah, Jonathan Mingo's another guy that's just. I think he's impressive, man. I think if he can just pull it together, man. He was so inconsistent with like his play last year. I feel like as an heir to the throne, where he can kind of take that spot once Adam Thielen kind of gets up there, which he already is up there. But I do like these. I do like the talent around Bryce Young. It's just like kind of what you said. I don't think anyone was expecting maybe the Andy Dalton take, but I think
I know that's a bold take that I have.
There's a concern.
I really can't wait to see this offense and what it looks like with a QB who can actually just be a field general and just get the ball out.
Yeah.
I mean, I put that as a joke, but like actually though, I don't think that Bryce I don't think he can have a sustainable successful offense with that limitations that he has. I really do like the skill sets. I think you have different variety of guys in the receiving room and also in the backfield to be able to have a consistent offense, but I just don't think that you can scheme up for the deficiencies that you have at QB.
Yeah, man. Let's head over to the defense now. What are you seeing over there?
That's like another big concern is that I feel like you're just losing guys like Frankie Louvu, Brian Burns, Deion Jones, but Dante Jackson, Von Bell, Jeremy Chin. I mean, you're swapping guys out, but they didn't really add to the secondary. Like, if they lose J.C. Horn at corner, it's like they're flipping burgers back there, bro, because it's five guys, dude. It's nobody really that stands out or that you can rely upon, bro. And you look at the front seven, and they got a guy like their D tackle. Oh man, what's his name off the top of my head? I really do like him. I think he's a guy that you can build around, but it's just you're looking at that pass defense, man. And I don't think they got one-on-one pass rushers that can win. I don't think they got a lot of guys in the secondary that you feel great about. JC's talented, but his whole thing is that he can't stay on the field, and if he misses again, this defense is going to give up points, man. And a team trailing and trying to chase points with a QB like this, keep him in the pocket, dude. It's game over, bro.
Yeah, I think Derek Brown's a good pass rusher. He's a stud. They got, Shaq Thompson, Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah.
They got some decent guys. It's just got a lot of unknown. I do want to see. Clowney was in a good spot. It was Ravens last year, right?
Yeah, he was with the Ravens. He fits that mold, the Ravens, they have these big, athletic, strong guys that just push the pocket from the edges, They can hold up and run D, and then also, too, they can just collapse the pocket with strength and power rush, And Clowney fit that great, he had good production last year, but I think he was a great fit for them. I don't know if he's the same being on his own on the edge out here.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there with taking on that bigger role. Is he going to have that same impact and same production? Yeah. It remains to be seen, man. I think this Panthers team is better than they were last year, but still not great. I think, like you said, one injury, their depth is horrid. I'm just looking at the depth chart now. It's awful.
Look at that secondary, man. Dude.
I don't know any of these names. I really don't know.
That's what I'm saying. If anything happens to JC, dude, they're going to be getting exposed. This is a bottom unit of pass defense.
Yeah. But, man, I think that's it for the Panthers, man. Let's head over to the Dallas Cowboys. Your thoughts on them?
I was kind of surprised by them, and I looked more at the roster. I liked it more than I thought I was going to. It's every year, this is their year. I was thinking the same thing. Jerry Jones, all in. It's like they lost some guys, and they didn't really add a lot, But I do think that on offense, they have CD, and they have Brandon Cooks, and I really think a guy like Kevontae Turpin is really in line to get more production and to really shine with how gifted he is of an athlete. I was kind of surprised by Rico Dowdle and how much I kind of liked him when I looked a little bit. He's kind of an unknown guy that's been just buried on the roster for years. I don't know what they're doing bringing back Zeke. It's kind of like Rodgers with the Jets bringing in his guys. Is Zeke literally just a Dak guy? I don't know.
Yeah.
What is he going to do? They brought in Dalvin Cook on the practice squad. But, the offensive line, stable. Dak, consistent. CD, he's kind of that guy. They paid him like he is as well.
He's that guy, bro.
He's going to be getting, just like the last year, it's going to be very similar this year in terms of where the ball's going, Because and if you look around at the rest of the offense, you got a 2 in Cooks and a guy who can make plays in Turpin, but there's not really a lot of guys who you feel like you have to prepare for.
Yeah, I think CeeDee Lamb is up there with Jay Jettis right now as like the guy for the league. I think he's one of the best receivers.
Yeah,
he continues. He had that breakout year last year. Crazy production out of him. I think Dak is, as much as you can say stuff about, all right, he doesn't show up in the big moment. He's a hell of a regular season QB, man.
For sure.
He performs. But the key word there is regular season QB, because if you want to win a championship, you have to have good quarterback play in the playoffs, and it's been the story of the Dallas Cowboys' life the past decade. Is they can't get over that hump, man. And I don't see them really doing it this year either. Like you said, they don't really have. They lose DeRon Bland, which is a huge, huge, huge loss for them. Did
he get hurt?
He did.
Okay, I missed that.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of like this. I think they got pieces on the secondary. I'm interested to see what Zimmer does with this, because he's changing the unit up to where he's going to try to make them more versatile, especially in the front seven. He's going to make them more versatile. I watched him a lot when he was at the Vikings and how he would load the A-gaps with the linebackers.
Yeah.
And he would create pressure, drop, and, he's got 2 guys. He's got a guy in Eric Kendricks who he knows how to run the system. You can throw the green dot on him right now, But I think a guy I've heard some things about, and I've also watched a little bit, is Demarion Overshown, the middle linebacker too. That dude, you pair him with Mike Zimmer, and he's ridiculously athletic. He knows how to rush the passer from the inside as a middle linebacker blitzing. And, dude, he just puts hits on people. I'm excited to see if he can kind of set a tone and kind of rise up a little bit. But, I just think that they got some solid guys up front to where it's not going to be bad. They have Micah Parsons. They have DeMarcus Lawrence. Yeah. They traded for Jordan Phillips. And, I mean, I think they'll be stable. And then the back end, we're just going to see how Mike Zimmer, what he decides to do with the DBs. Because, I mean, you got skill sets. You got a skill set with Trayvon Diggs, who's a very long and aggressive corner who forces turnovers. And, I mean, I've liked a guy like Malik Hooker since he was coming out of Ohio State years ago. So, I mean, it's just we'll see. But it's all going to come down to this front seven and how Mike Zimmer creates pressure. Because, I mean, he's talking about moving Micah to more linebacker, and I think that'd be a pretty big mistake, specifically with the lack of edge rush beyond him.
Yeah, I think it's that front seven is interesting because you got one of the best pass rushers in the league, and then you got another guy, DeMarcus Lawrence, who is very underrated. I think because he's with Micah Parsons, he doesn't get all that shine that I think he deserves.
Sure.
But they got two studs on the D-line, and then when you have that type of pressure up there, man, that makes that secondary just have to cover for just half a second less, and that could be the difference between big plays and pass breakouts, man. So I think that the more I look at it, the more I'm like, okay, but I don't really see them. They didn't really improve necessarily, which I think is it's the biggest problem for them is like, yes, they were good last year. But then they lost to an up-and-coming Green Bay team, and take nothing away, they're good. And Green Bay is one of the favorites in the NFC for a reason.
Yeah.
But I will say, to compete, and especially with this Philadelphia team we're about to talk to next, man, they are, I think, a little bit lacking in terms of the talent department. But we'll see. When you got Dak Prescott and you got CeeDee Lamb on that offense and you got playmakers on the defense, you never know, man. But
yeah, it's going to come down to Zimmer. It's going to come down to how he creates pressure with this defense. And what does he do on the back end to match up? Because, I mean, he has a corner like Trayvon Diggs, and he worked for years with a guy similar type of skill set, not exactly the same. I think Xavier Rhodes was a little more physical.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I still think either way, very sizable size matchup, comparable corners that I'm interested to see what he does with. So, I mean, I'll be paying attention to how they set their guys up for success more so.
Yeah, man. Let's head over to the Philadelphia Eagles now. Let's touch on their offense, man, because they signed one of the best running back free agents that you could probably get.
Yeah. Man, dude, Saquon's – I've watched for about 12 years, so I didn't get to see LaDainian Tomlinson. I didn't get to see Emmitt Smith or the greats of the past. But, I mean, the talent that he came out with, and to see him where he's at right now, you know, he came out running a 4.4 flat. That dude was big, electric, like Bijan, but with speed, you know. And it's like when I see him now, he's running like he's Adrian Peterson at 34, you know. I think that he's more versatile, and he has enough power and playmaking ability and size to kind of add a identity to the offense. But I think they're really going to need to take advantage of Hurts' legs while this offensive line is still as strong as it is, because you got a guy like Lane Johnson getting old, Jason Kelce just retired. They're starting to lose some guys a little bit, and they really need to make sure this ground game is the identity of the offense. And Hurts' legs are a big part of it. You can have Saquon, but I really think that they need to adopt a power run game to complement the receivers so they can be a counter and not just A.J. Brown, go off, get us 3 touchdowns, you know. I think they need to really adopt a power identity on offense with a run game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I want to touch on that Jahan Dotson thing, but going back to your point about Jalen Hurts, I think you're totally right about this offensive line. Like, they had one of the best offensive lines for consistently 2-3 years with Jordan Mailata. I think
like
it's like
17.
Yeah.
Sounds like 17.
Yeah, Lane Johnson. You got Kelce retiring. Got Mekhi Becton at right guard, solid. And then, I mean, these skill guys, man. You got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I mean, talk about receiver tandems. That's probably one of the best in the league. I would say.
For sure.
They had a good tight end, Dallas Goedert too. I mean, I just didn't understand really the Jahan Dotson trade. I see what they saw. I know how talented he is. I remember he was one of my fantasy breakout guys last year, and I drafted him. He just fell on his face. But
that's just Washington. I think Philly can get a little more out of him.
Yeah.
Get him some touches, man. Let him get the ball in his hands and make plays.
Yeah, they did draft Johnny Wilson out of FSU, big boy. I think he's like 6'7".
He's a receiver?
Yeah. Yeah, but man, I think this offense just take what they got last year and add Saquon to it, man. You lose Kelsey, but you add Saquon, and I think it's pretty damn good offense. Let's head over to this defense now. What are you thinking about them?
I want to touch on one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Eagles offense.
Yeah.
I think that they've been really banking on that tush push for short yardage situations and to know they have a touchdown. But I think that losing Kelsey, it's not going to be the same. And I think they really would be smart to go ahead and adopt more of a power run game and use Hurts' legs and some options and some old Panthers style with Cam Newton QB power plays. I think that would be very smart. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a very well-built, strong, sturdy QB I don't know if you ever seen it, but those old videos of him squatting like 600 pounds or whatever it was, dude's stacked.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you get some QB run game and get some more out of his youth, I think that would really set them over the top. But we'll see what the OC ends up doing with him. I forget. He came from the Chargers, but with the Cowboys, he's old QB, Kellen Moore. Yeah, Kellen Moore is now the OC. We'll see what he ends up choosing to do with them, but they need to get an identity on offense.
Yeah, man. I totally agree about the loss with the tush push. It's a big thing. I think they had good chemistry about it, and I don't think it's going to be as effective. I think they'll still call it.
Yeah, they will.
Not it won't be as effective as it was last year. But let's head over to this defense, man. I want to touch. I'll start off the defense. Jordan Davis, man. What a player. He is one of the best D linemen. I think if he stays healthy and he doesn't have that fall off like he did after game 6 or 5 or what he had last year, where he was one of the best pass rushers and run defenders in the league for the first 5 weeks, and then he kind of fell off. If he worked on his conditioning, man, which I think he did, it is going to be scary, man. It's going to be scary. You got Jalen Carter, you got Bryce Huff with that trade with the Hassan Reddick, which Jets are friggin' regretting now.
Jets are the Jets.
But man, this defense is solid, man. They got Josh Sweat, they got CJ Gardner-Johnson, who is a dog, man. He's a dog.
They needed him back.
Yeah,
they needed him.
And they got Quinion Mitchell, was a great draft pick. I think him and Cooper DeJean kind of just fell right in their lap to beef up that secondary, which is very lacking last year.
100%.
And you got Darius Slay too. You got Keely Ringo, another Arizona guy out of Saguaro.
Athletes, man.
Just a bunch of athletes on the freaking back end, man, and that's all you want. What are your thoughts on them?
When you got a D-line that can rush with 4 and win, and you talked about like Jordan Davis and his conditioning. I think with him, you got to be able to rotate him. You'd love to have a guy like Fletcher Cox who you can just throw out there and pass rush. Not everybody's like that. There's a reason why he was special. I think with a guy like Jordan Davis, if you can rotate him and not lose competency in the D tackle room, I think that's major, because if you can keep those guys fresh, they can do it on the edge. They got edge rushers for days. But I think in terms of the interior, they need to be able to force these teams into third and long where they can just get after them. And I think if they can do that, I mean, they got, like you said, they got all the talent on the back end to make plays. And if they're doing that and they got Vic Fangio back, I mean, hopefully that was just Miami, and that wasn't Vic Fangio's scheme and him no longer being able to adapt. But we'll see. I mean, they got all the talent out there. I mean, linebacker as well. One guy I forgot about was their edge rusher, Nolan Smith.
Yes.
I really want to see if they can develop him and turn him into their own Hassan Reddick, because I think that dude, he ran a 4.3 as a linebacker.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you got these tackles trying to drop back and get him on the edge, but if he can bend and he can get a good beat on the snap, you just can't stop that. So I think that If this team can get an early lead or force teams into third and long, it's going to be tough for anybody to beat them.
Yeah, kind of going off that point about Nolan Smith. I loved him coming out of. I think he kind of fell in the draft. I think his measurables kind of let him down a little bit and kind of scared some teams away. But Sonrek is undersized pass rusher too, man. And
same size, man. They were the same size.
So you might as well just plug him in, see if he can do that role. And if he doesn't, it's fine. You got Bryce Huff. You traded for him. You won that trade, man. That for sure. Hassan, we'll get to the Jets when we talk about the AFC, but man, they're kicking themselves after that one. I think that's it for the Eagles, man. Oh yeah. Anything else you want to touch on?
Nah, we wrapped it, man.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll round out the NFC East. Oh, actually, sorry, we got one more team after that. But we'll head over to the New York Giants and their great quarterback play. What do you think about them, man?
Man, it's honestly sad that that's their QB situation that they're just going to go out there with. You know, it's like when I looked at the roster, I was surprised at how many guys I liked. They do have a lot of speed at receiver, and they got playmakers, you know. And at running back, they got speed as well. Nobody really you want to just like every down go. But, I mean, they got players, and then they fixed the offensive line, and they got – I wish that we could see this offense with Dable and see – what it would look like with a respectable QB. I mean, we'll see if Daniel Jones maybe just turns it on. It didn't look like he's going to in the preseason. I mean,
no.
The Texans kind of took it to him a little bit, and falling back and just chucking it to the defense.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Exactly. That's what I feel like I'm saying a lot, way too often when I'm watching him play, and it's an unfortunate sight to see him back there, you know. And I mean, even if you had Drew Lock, at least you'd have some effort QB play to where, like, they're letting the guys make plays. Yeah. They're giving their guys a chance to go down the field and go win some balls, you know? And it's just like, man, it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Talk about that Drew Lock. Hey, you got Malik Neighbors. At least Drew Lock would throw it up to him, man. He might throw a pick. He might underthrow it. But
give his guy a chance, man.
Yeah, give him a chance. I think Daniel Jones is just such an abomination at quarterback. I cannot stand watching that dude play. I think, whenever I think Daniel Jones, for some reason, I just feel like that. I just see that rush when he was going to the end zone and just ate it wide open, running down the field. That was a few years back, but man, that's just the epitome of Daniel Jones' career, man. You got all the talent around you. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slay, and Jalen Hyatt are like top end guys. But they're playmakers, man, and you got a number one. You got a number one in Malik Neighbors, and you can move him wherever you need him. He's such a dynamic athlete, man.
Very.
You don't have a terrible O line. You got Andrew Thomas and John Rennan on the left. That's really what you need. And
they threw in serviceable guys to hopefully make it a baseline of where they can at least just run some dang plays. You know, it's just. It's unfortunate for sure, and I'm pretty sure Drew Lock got knocked out with with an injury as well. So it's not even like you can go back out there. And what are you gonna do? Throw Danny DeVito out there? It's unfortunate.
Yeah, Tommy Cullets, get him out there. Let's head over to the defense now. What are your thoughts on them, man?
They didn't add to the DB room. They add all these guys up front, and like they got guys, you know, like. They got guys at linebacker. They got guys at edge rush. They got guys inside, and it's just like, why didn't they touch the DB room? You can win up front, but if your DBs can't hold up, it's like, I see the face you're making looking at the depth chart.
Yeah,
it's very similar to the Panthers, and they let Xavier McKinney go. Okay, you don't want to pay a safety when you're trying to rebuild, but I mean, you drafted him. And I think they're going to regret not adding more to the DB room, and I think it's going to cost them because this offense with the QB situation, chasing points, I hope that on my notes, I said that I hope they just get their ass kicked early on in the season so that Daniel Jones just goes, you know what do I have to lose? And he just starts to sling it. I just want to see them let this offense loose a little bit and hopefully get in some shootouts. I think that'd be at least make it exciting to watch this year because other than that, trying to win games, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, their front seven, if you just cut off their secondary, everything else looks great, man. They got Kayvon Thibodeau.
Exactly.
They got, obviously, Dexter Lawrence is the best nose tackle in the game. You had Brian Burns.
Brian Burns? You got solid, Thibodeau. Bro. You got Ojulari's on the He's on the Cardinals. You got what was the other guy they got there?
Ojulari, Aziz Ojulari, yeah.
Ojulari, yeah. I like him too.
Yeah, and then
coming
you
off the bench, it's like guy you can rotate and you feel comfortable about.
Yeah, and then you got Cordell Flott, Deontay Banks, Drew Phillips as your three corners. And the reason I was making that face while you were talking, man, I see Isaiah Simmons listed as their second nickelback. And I just think that is such a sad thing as a Cardinals guy, being like, man, I remember when they drafted Isaiah Simmons, and I'm a Clemson guy at heart, not anymore. I just don't like what Dabo is doing over there anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't think this aged well. I was a huge Deshaun Watson guy. Let's not, no one clip that. I'm no longer a fan of Deshaun Watson.
You were a freak for that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll just play.
But I was a huge Deshaun Watson guy at Clemson, and watching Isaiah Simmons,
it's fun to watch.
He was a stud, man. And
Simmons is a crazy athlete.
He's a crazy athlete, but he just doesn't get it. He just doesn't understand the game enough. It's just such a waste, and that's why I was making that face. I was like, dude, that's such a sad thing. But yeah, man, you touched on it. This secondary, they didn't add anybody. They are so lacking here. It's honestly embarrassing for them. You're just hoping that this pass rush gets there in like half a second, because there is literally no one there. I mean,
there's nobody.
I just hope for I took Malik Neighbors, so I hope for Malik Neighbors' sake, what you said about Daniel Jones just slinging it comes to fruition.
Play with nothing to lose.
Yeah, man.
Just do it.
Just do it, man. But yeah.
Shoot some Nike commercials. Daniel Jones, get him in there. Just do it.
Yeah, man. Deep shit. All right, we're back. We're back talking about the Washington Commanders. What are your thoughts about them? They got Jaden Daniels now, but what are you thinking?
I don't know what they're doing bringing in this retirement home. I mean, they got all these guys they brought in. Eckler, Ertz, Bobby Wagner. I mean, I like Luvu, but I mean, even Mariota, I mean, it's just Mariota's not going to play, but it's just they're just trying to stay afloat, it seems like. It just seems like they're bringing in this new coaching staff. They're trying to get pieces that have skill sets to where they can at least function. But, I mean, you're bringing a rookie QB into a situation where there's a bad offensive line. You got Terry, but, I mean, beyond that, who is he going to rely on? You're putting a lot of pressure on play calling, QB legs, and I don't know if he has the mature enough play to be able to hang in a full season with this lineup they got. It's like there's just so many holes and so much lacking talent and winners. It's Terry and a bunch of guys to assist him, and that's not a good situation for a guy that kind of puts himself in harm's way.
Yeah, man, you kind of touched on it, man. I think Terry is phenomenal. I think he's actually going to have a big year because he's actually going to have a quarterback, like you said. But yeah, I mean, this running back room doesn't wow me at all. I think Austin Eckler's washed.
Did you see the thing of him where they were talking about how his average speed on this rush versus the Packers was like 12 or 13 miles per hour, and he just got tracked down by everyone. And it was like, that's like what an average person could run and what an average person would look like on an NFL field, bro. It was so funny. He was coming off the ankle injury, but I mean, he didn't have that same explosion last year.
Yeah.
But they were saying like that's what an average person would look like if they were running around in a field.
Just me and you just getting hawked down by some NFL dude. Yeah.
Bro, nah, don't hurt me.
Yeah, literally, bro. I think, yeah, I mean, Brian Robinson Jr., I mean, that is your starter. I don't know. I wasn't the biggest fan of him. I know he's all right, but I just don't think he's noteworthy at all. I think I was a big Noah Brown guy last year. They signed him from the Texans. I don't know how. I don't know. Am I missing something with this Olamide Zaccheaus? I don't even know how. That's definitely not how you say it.
Olamide Zaccheaus. Nah, you got it. Funky name.
Whatever. Who names their kid? Anyways, yeah,
it's cultural, bro. Stop.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Don't get canceled the first episode. Noah Brown, I was a big fan of him. he stepped up when
Yeah.
when Tank went down, and especially when Nico went down for a few games there.
Talented.
He's extremely talented. He's very reliable. I think he has a very good sense for kind of settling down into space and kind of running routes, obviously, but kind of finding that little hole in the defense. And I think that's going to be very appreciated by Jaden Daniels as kind of like that, maybe not Keenan Allen as good as Keenan Allen, but kind of like that same role of kind of just finding pockets in the defense. I was a big fan of that signing. Yeah.
I need that for sure.
Zach Ertz, jeez, man, that dude's been all over the league.
Bro, his dad comes into Mountainside. We can't talk bad about Zach.
No, I don't talk bad about him.
No,
I'm just kidding. No, Zach is just he was
Love
good.
You, Terry.
Yeah, he was good, man, for the Eagles, and that was what 5-6 years ago, man. I just don't get it. I don't get the signing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're trying to look at like just depth and old reliables for Jaden Daniels. And I think you touched on it. They're trying to get off the ground too quick. I think when you get a franchise quarterback here, I think the tendency is like, all right, let's build around him this year. Like, let's get him some pieces. Not everyone can be as lucky as your Chicago Bears, man. Some teams have got to just take a breath. You got studs. You got Terry McLaurin. You got Jaden Daniels. Okay, let's pump the brakes. And maybe not try to add all these guys and waste some salary cap and just maybe tank another year. Maybe take a play out of the freaking Browns playbook. But they what?
Do you remember a couple of years ago when the Texans signed Tyrod Taylor in the middle of their rebuild? And it's like, what are you doing?
Yep.
This is the Tyrod Taylor team.
Yeah.
They drafted the QB a year too early, and then they tried to patch it together and hopefully that they can be competent. But this is the Tyrod Taylor team that got giddy and drafted a rookie QB because they had a new staff in place.
Yeah.
And I think that we'll see. Obviously, we don't got a crystal ball in front of us. But, I mean, it's going to be really tough. Jaden's going to have so much pressure on him to be the man in this offense, and he's going to need some major maturity in his game to be able to sustain any kind of successful offense and, bottom line, protect himself.
Yeah. So over to this defense now. Some notable offseason additions: Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner, signed Jeremy Chin. I don't know. This defense I think is going to be good. I think Dan Quinn's going to kind of get these boys dialed in and kind of bring that kind of tenacity that he had in Dallas and bring that over here. So I think he's going to elevate these guys. But looking at just pure talent, I'm not a huge fan. What are your thoughts?
I mean, you bring over Dan Quinn, you look at what he did with the Cowboys, where he kind of put his guys in position to make plays with like putting a guy who they drafted like Michael Parsons at middle linebacker, and you moved him to edge. And then you got Jeremy Chin, and they had the safety from, I forget his name, but the safety from the Vikings, who was a very, very big body guy, 6'4", box type, where they would throw him in. He used to have Cam Chancellor. He's trying to have a guy like that. He's trying to fit roles with just players instead of homegrown talent. And I think it's going to be interesting to see if they can be stable, because that edge rush, non-existent. But there's a lot of teams that are taking these middle linebackers and they're moving them to edge now to see if they can somehow turn him into a pass rusher, and they're doing that with Jamin Davis. I'm going to be watching to see what they can do with him, but it's just he's trying to create roles with these veterans, and I don't know how it's all going to come together. I'm going to be interested to see, but, I mean, I feel like they're just trying to hold it together to where they're not going to break this QB.
Yeah, I think you could see a similar season to the Panthers, but not as much of a dumpster fire, because I think Jaden's just ability to get out and move is gonna kind of help them a lot. If the play breaks down, and they got the receiver with Terry, that's just gonna kind of bail them out. But this defense, I don't think they're gonna be bad. I think like they sped up their rebuild too soon, but I don't think they're on the right track. I think they're kind of just a few years out from actually being kind of relevant. But you got a quarterback, man. Yeah. That's all you can just take away from this. I think it's a lot of unknown too, like a lot of moving parts, a lot of turnover. A lot of guys being brought in, brought out. A lot of guys being signed. So it's remains to be seen. I think they're one of the more questionable, like, teams with the most questions about them this year.
We're going to know how good the coaching is after this year.
Yeah.
We're going to know if they can actually, like, have anything to build on. And you're just hoping that Jaden makes it through the season because they really don't have a lot for him to work with on offense. Noah Brown's there and he's talented, but, I mean, it's just who are you going to depend on? Yeah. You got Jaden and then a bunch of guys and Terry McLaurin. And even Terry McLaurin's never been one of the top guys in the league. Talented, great player, but he's very comparable to like a Chris Olave. He's not like a one. You would love to have him as a number 2.
I think that's a great point because if you put Terry with what's like another receiver, like a bigger body, just throw me a big name.
You threw him with like an AJ Brown. Dude.
Oh yeah. Like just literally just like the Eagles, man. Throw him with the AJ Brown, man. Oh my gosh, or like give him like a DK on the outside, like
some just big body physical receiver to where he can be the smaller Z complement, like that Z receiver, that number 2.
But yeah, man, I think a lot of unknown with this team. That kind of wraps up what I gotta talk about.
Yeah, I mean it's just they gotta survive the year basically.
Yeah. Let's head over to finish up the NFC West. That's actually the end of the NFC West. Let's. East, I mean. We'll go over to the NFC West now with start off with the San Francisco 49ers, man. What are your thoughts on them?
They're running it back. I mean, they're just running it back. And it's like I think the one thing this year that you're going to see a little bit different on their offense is that I think they're going to lean more into Ayuk in the pass game and try to take some pressure off these guys that have been major producers and playmakers. And I think they're going to try to lean more on a guy like Ayuk and really get utilization out of him. They paid him like they're going to. And these other guys like a Debo, like a Christian McCaffrey, like a George Kittle, they get banged up. You want to keep these guys fresh so you can win in the end and not just produce points early on. So I think they're going to look to utilize a guy like Brandon Ayuk way more in the passing game. So I think he's in store for a huge season. Also, too, you got to get Trent Williams back. Whatever you got to do, get him back. You have to have that left tackle set down. And he's just a tone setter on the offensive line. You have to have that guy.
Yeah, they run behind him a lot. We don't really talk about fullbacks here, but they got one of the best in Kyle Juszczyk, man. He's a stud,
dog.
Man. Yeah, he's a stud.
He's got that dog in him.
They asked him to do a lot, and he pretty much is a jack of all trades for them. Man. Let me touch on Brock. Another Arizona guy. Went to Perry.
Love Brock.
I don't love Brock. I think
a lot of people don't.
Yeah, I'm kind of with them. I can see. I just appreciate Brock because he's such a gamer, man. I don't think he doesn't have all the tools. He doesn't have all the traits and measurables that you want from your quarterback. But the man's just a gamer. He goes out. It just does his best. I know it kind of sounds like a participation trophy award for him, but he showed he can make some throws. I'm not going to take away that from him, but I just don't see the Niners. If they weren't going to win it last year, I don't think they win it this year, man. I think they got guys. Brandon Ayuk is one of the most electric receivers in the league, I think.
Yeah, he's in his prime right now, too.
Yeah, man. They just paid him. He's not going anywhere. They're going to freaking feed him the ball. Obviously, best running back in the league, Christian McCaffrey, as long as he's healthy.
Mason behind him, too, is really nice
Jordan
as well.
Mason, yep.
If he has to step in for McCaffrey, he'll fill in perfectly. They're not going to miss a beat.
Yeah. The draft rookie Purcell, prayers up to him, man. When I saw that news headline, I was just like, damn.
He's in the weight room like days later, bro. Like, that's just
he's got
wicked,
that dog.
Bro.
He's got that dog. But Debo, I think, is the biggest question mark for this team. I know I mentioned this to you at Mountainside one day, but he looks big and slow. I don't know if you've kind of watched the preseason. Maybe it was just who he's playing with.
I haven't seen him in the preseason.
I don't know if you watched. Yeah, so he looks. I don't know. He was having trouble separating from these Raiders corners, and maybe I'm just reading too far into this. It's the preseason. I'm just itching for football to get back. So maybe he goes out and just shuts me up right away. But man, he didn't look as shifty and as explosive and as aggressive as he usually does. He's their big physical receiver, and he's not big. He just kind of is a little meatball and just plows over people, and they use him in a variety of ways.
Breaks tackles.
Yeah,
bro.
man.
Like, you can't
he's a
tackle
freak.
him.
Yeah, I saw him actually.
He's a bully with the ball in his hands, man.
We had this big basketball tournament called Session 7 here in Arizona at the Cardinal Stadium.
Really?
And I was over there, and I looked to my right, and I was like, is that Debo Samuel? Apparently, Debo Samuel has someone on some prep team here, maybe like a little cousin or something. He was showing out to his game, but he was there, man. And looking at an NFL receiver and that being Debo,
yeah,
he's just his lower half. There's a reason that he just runs over people. His lower half is unbelievable. Like it is. He is so freakishly strong. His legs are just insanely big. I was like, as big as my head. I was like, oh my gosh, that's what like an NFL receiver looks like. But but
these guys are built different. They're not in the NFL for any any other reason. I mean, they're built different.
Yeah, man. So over to this defense, I'm curious to see what you think and see if you're thinking what I'm thinking about this defense.
I want to ask a couple more things though
about
Brock Purdy, because I'm a big Brock Purdy guy.
I've
been super big on him since I saw him in the preseason his rookie year. I've loved Brock Purdy for years, honestly. And do you think they'd be the same offense if they put Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, any of these other guys in there? Do you think they'd be the same offense?
I think they'd be miles better.
Really?
Yeah, I think with this team, you saw with Jimmy, like you saw, it's not just the system, because if it was the system, Jimmy would have flourished. And I think it takes a little bit more talent to be successful in this offense. That's why like Brock Purdy won the job and eventually took over, because he is more talented. But I feel like they're missing that quarterback play. If you put up Brock against Mahomes, Brock against Lamar, against these high-end quarterbacks, at the end of the day, it's honestly who has the best quarterback, and I just don't. You can put the pieces around him. He struggled, man, in the Super Bowl. I know he led a pretty good drive at the end of the game, but man, I don't really see the longevity with Brock Purdy. So
I looked at that Super Bowl, and honestly, I see the Chiefs, and I see how they play defense, and their corners, the way they could get in the receiver's face and really just give Debo and Ayuk problems. I think that was a way bigger thing in the Super Bowl. But, I mean, you look at the production, the way that he creates and the way that he moves in the pocket, and for him to sprint out and then hit someone in the back corner of the end zone, throw these back shoulder passes down the field to these playmakers. He lets them make plays. Jimmy didn't do that, and a lot of QBs don't. But he throws catchable passes. He has some creator in him to where I think that the offense accentuates who he is. But I do think he would look different in other places. But I think in a situation like this, it allows him to be the best version of himself. So, I mean, that's kind of I just wanted to stand for Brock a little bit, because I think that I've really been a big fan of his for years, because he does have unique traits that make him special.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. If anyone were to bring out the best qualities in someone, it'd be Kyle Shanahan. But yeah, man, Are you done with the Brock Purdy? What other question? Yeah. Let's head over to the defense now. What do you think?
The defense, I mean, I was kind of surprised, and actually I felt better about it when I looked at the depth chart, because, I mean, you see guys leaving, see some of the edges leave, and you got Eric Armstead, and I mean, I knew about Leonard Floyd back when he was with the Bears and everything. His thing was he couldn't consistently get after the quarterback. He's done that now for years now with the Bills, with the Rams, and so he's more of an established pass rusher, which is always what they hoped he would be, but he never really developed into that with Chicago. But I think he can actually be a good number 2 to Bosa there, and I think that the interior, they're going to be fine. They brought in Javon Hargrave, and I think they also added Devondre Campbell, because they're going to be missing. I forget the linebacker's name that tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl. Greenlaw, dude. Yeah. Greenlaw is the tone setter on that defense, But I think they all have the same mindset at each level of the defense, whether it's D-line, linebackers, secondary. They all have this veteran leadership to where they will play physical, and guys go down, but they've developed and they've had the same guys in the same system for so long that this is just a veteran unit that I think I don't really see them stepping back as much as I maybe thought before I looked at the roster.
Yeah, I think when you have as stacked as a front seven as they do,
yeah,
your corners and secondary are going to look that much better. Let me just read you guys their front seven real quick. Yeah, Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins, I think that's how you say his name. Javon Hargrave, yeah. Obviously, Nick Bosa, Devondre Campbell, Fred Warner. You got Flanagan Fowles, who's decent. He's kind of like their weak link. He's actually pretty good. I watched some of his tape because I was like, who is this guy? But he's solid. But like you said, that Greenlaw injury is a killer for them. He's their guy. I know Fred Warner. The fact that the luxury they have with Greenlaw and Warner when they're both healthy men is absurd. But they're gonna miss Greenlaw and they're gonna feel that loss.
For sure.
But take nothing away from this front seven, man. They can get after the rush, or they get after the passer. They got some decent guys. They got Travarius Ward and Hufanga back there.
Just a bunch of vets.
Yeah, a bunch of guys that just are solid. But yeah, that's pretty much wraps it up for me. What do you think?
Yeah, they're just running it back.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be back there again. They're going to be one of the final 8, probably 4 teams, whether they make it to the Super Bowl and win it or not. I mean, we'll see. It's going to depend on health. So that's all about health. They got top-end guys at every level of the team.
Yeah. Let's head over to the LA Rams. What are your thoughts on them?
Man, I mean, it's just going to be about health, just like the Niners. They're kind of just running it back as well. I mean, they added a little bit here and there with guys like Blake Corum as RB2. They brought in Colby Parkinson, the tight end from the Seahawks, who's a very versatile and athletic player. I mean, they're going to miss some time with their top tight end out. So Parkinson, we'll see if he can step up and be a playmaker for them. But, I mean, the top 2 receivers is where it all starts with them in the passing game. I really think it's crucial for them for long-term success in this season to really just dig into that 2-back rotation, because you have something very similar to what the Lions are doing with that whole Gibbs and Montgomery. Corum's like that Montgomery. Gibbs is comparable to Kyron Williams. Not the same explosion athletic ability, but skill sets, you're getting something very similar. So it's like I think they really need to dig into that 2-back and really go and have an identity on offense of running the ball so you can just complement with that elite passing options that you have and Stafford's ability to get the ball to him in the middle of the field, deep slot fades, anything, They just take advantage with chemistry.
Yeah, just touching on Stafford, man. That dude has got to get his flowers. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league for a few years now. Even when they won the Super Bowl, he wasn't the best regular season guy. But, man, he turned it up in the playoffs. And last year especially, with Cooper Kupp not having his greatest year, like the way the ball comes out of his hand, the way this high-level decision-making he has, he's such a vet, man. He's so fun to watch. They got that 1-2 punch with Corum and Kyron. I don't think it's – I want to use I feel like they're a very similar type of player. They're very similar type of player, but it's more complementary than or more replacement level than the Montgomery and Gibbs thing. I think Montgomery and Gibbs is kind of 2 different skill sets, as Corum and Kyron Williams are more like very similar backs, but they can kind of just plug and play if Kyron were to go down.
They got the great value brand of the Detroit Lions.
Yeah. I think, if Cooper Kupp can just get back fully healthy, he looked better towards the end of the season, man. He looked more like Cooper Kupp, who led the league in touchdowns and receiving yards a few years ago. But, man, who thought Puka, man? I did not think Puka Nacua was going to be – I thought during that entire season I was just waiting for his fall off, and it just never happened, man. I'm so happy to see. He's such a good dude.
Shout out to the Bootleg Football Podcast, by the way. They were pushing Puka Nacua heavily before the season, saying that he was a breakout guy and the Rams loved him. And he was a 5th-round rookie, so no one's really looking for that. But, as soon as Kupp went down, he stepped right in and took over. So, I'll give credit to them. They kind of gave it – I didn't listen to him. I should have drafted him in fantasy. I didn't listen to him, but they did call it first last year. And if you look in their Rams season preview of last year, they were really big talking about Puka Nacua and had really high expectations of him. That's the only guys that I heard talking about that, but they did though.
Man, good for them because I did not see it. They also have Demarcus Robinson, who's kind of a more. He's very similar to Tutu Atwell, where he's like a gadget guy. They got two guys to kind of complement those kind of bigger body receivers. It's funny, I don't know, watching Cooper Kupp and Puka lift in the offseason together. But Cooper Kupp is sneaky jacked, bro. He's sneaky strong. And their footwork is nuts. Watching them do those ladder drills is just, it's so fun to watch how hard that is and how easy they make it look.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's head over to that defense now. They drafted 2 Florida State guys. I want to hear your opinion on that.
I mean, I didn't do too much heavily scouting on them. I'm kind of familiar with Verse. I'm not super familiar with Fisk. I mean, I know that they are supposed to have great chemistry together and they play off each other. I mean, some of the guys I listened to really liked Verse more so as that powerful edge guy. And I mean, it's really tough when you don't have much else to rely on in the front seven and you're just going to put in 2 rookies and say, go get them. You know, it's like maybe they overachieve and exceed. I mean, the Rams have a tendency to do that. I mean, they were stable last year when everyone thought they might take a step back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're going to bet on a team getting it right and doing something with rookies, I mean, the Rams are the team to do that. But I think that front seven is going to have a tough time. You know, I think they really went out and tried to establish a strong secondary so that they could really assist this D-line in their growth because they're going to have some growing pains.
Yeah, when you lose the greatest defensive player arguably we've ever seen other than Lawrence Taylor.
In our time, for sure.
Yeah, in our time, the past 2 decades, he's been unbelievable, man. Aaron Donald, obviously, we're talking about. But, yeah, man, they try to go after 2 guys in the first and second round where they're like, all right, let's see if these guys can kind of make up for some of that lost production.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to be the case, man. I know they have Kobe Turner, too, who's a stud. But I was listening also to someone, and they're talking about, all right, so Aaron Donald draws that much attention.
Yeah.
What does that do when Kobe has all that attention on him now, right? Is he going to be that same kind of difference maker that he was last year in his rookie season, man? And it's maybe he does. Maybe he is the same guy, and remains to be seen. You can't really speculate too much. But, yeah, they go out and get the 2 Florida State guys. They get Tre'Davious White, which he's been – it's so –
Can he stay on the field?
Yeah, his corner is such an odd position because I see Tre'Davious White 3 years ago, and you're like, all right, one of the best corners in the league. You know what I mean? Yeah. And now you're looking at him, you're like, all right, he maybe can do the job for them. It's just such an odd position. Yeah, Kobe Durant, he's solid. I like him a lot. I know some other people do too. They got John Johnson and Cameron Curl. Very good safeties.
Darius Williams as well
coming out, as like the second string guy behind Kobe Durant. And yeah, man, I think this Rams team, they overachieved last year. I don't think they're sneaking up on anyone this year, especially Puka. I don't think anyone really game planned for him.
Nah, and that's why I had 14 catches and week 1 last year.
Yeah, man.
Dude went off, but I think their plan is that they hope that they can just supply the back end to assist this D end in their growth or the front seven in their growth. I mean, they just had to trade away their linebacker too, who was kind of a stud for them. I forget his name. See, I'm having trouble with names right now.
No, you're good.
But I think it was Ernest Jones. They traded him to the Titans. I mean, that's just another reason why. I mean, that secondary is going to be so huge for them. They got to stay on the field if they can. I mean, at least it provides some stability back there. But you got to win up front, and it's going to be a question mark and maybe time before we see if they can.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. I think they're kind of middling in terms of where they finished last year. I feel like they could just – I think losing Aaron Donald, that is such a big loss, man. He just does so much for that defense.
He's a multiplier.
Yeah.
Makes everyone else around him better.
Exactly. And I think they're going to miss him dearly, but That's it for the Rams for me. Anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, this whole team's about health, and I mean, they're trying to develop some rookies, but it's just if anything were to happen to Stafford, it's off a cliff.
Oh yeah,
this team is going to be bottom 6, 8 teams in the league most likely. So it's health is massive for that team.
Yeah, we saw what Stetson Bennett looked like in his first preseason start. That was
it's so
awful,
disappointing.
Man.
I liked him too, and it's just I like his athletic ability and what McVay could do creative wise with him, but it's a tough watch.
Yeah. Let's head over to the Seattle Seahawks now. They had a new head coach, man. I want to hear your thoughts about him.
I mean, I thought he did a great job with the Ravens. I mean, they got this whole – I'm a big fan of the Ravens organization. I think that the way that they play football is the right way. I think that the way that they draft, develop, they know what they want in players, I think should translate over to the Seahawks. And, I mean, I can start with the defense on this one just because it's head coach, you know.
Yeah.
I think that they're moving around some pieces and they're trying to get guys in the right roles so they can play their style of ball. I mean, they paid a guy in Draymond Jones last year to be a 3 technique for him, and they got him listed as edge rusher now. You know, and I was talking about the Ravens and their edge rushers and the way they're just power big and push the pocket. They bring in another guy like Trevis Gibson as well. You know, I mean, I know I'm familiar with him, and he's that mold. You know, I think also too they moved a guy from like Kobe Durant. They moved him to edge, and then they bring in another guy, Byron Murphy, interior, play with Leonard Williams. You know, and you're hoping that you can get something similar to what they had last year with the Ravens, big interior guys, and then having a guy like Madubuike who was able to break out, and he was just that quicker, more crafty, and shoot the gap type of guy. And I think Byron Murphy, he's going to have a big season, I think, for this Seahawks team, and I think he's going to have guys around him to kind of take the load off and just let his talents shine and let him win one-on-one. So I think this team has a lot of role player skill sets to fit specific roles that this DC or head coach, who's awesome, you can call him the DC. It's his defense.
Yeah.
You know, I think that they're gonna fit his style of ball at an earlier rate than people might think.
Yeah, I think this Seattle team is sneaky good on defense. They got Tariq Woolen and Devon Witherspoon, and
Witherspoon's sick.
Witherspoon is so fun to watch, man. He's like what I think a lot of people kind of saw with like a Derwin James-esque type guy, with just a hard hitter, kind of reading everywhere, all over the field. Yeah, exactly.
Versatile and aggressive, man. He's just a ball player.
Woolen had that crazy first season with all those interceptions and kind of took a step back in terms of the interceptions last year, but still was just as good in coverage.
Yep.
And, man, I was freaking kicking the air when they drafted Byron Murphy as a Cardinals guy because he's so talented. And I was like, how did he fall?
He's going to eat when he plays them.
How did he fall? Yeah, exactly, dude. Oh, my gosh.
So athletic.
Yeah,
dude.
He's such a freak, and I'm happy for them, sad for the Cardinals, man, because he's a stud. He's going to be good for them.
We can bounce the offense now if you want.
Yeah, let's get to the offense now. Geno Smith, man. What a career that dude's had. That dude has been everywhere. I mean, that dude, I totally forgot he was in the NFL until he had that breakout year.
Yeah.
What was that quote said? You know what I'm talking about.
The haters wrote me off, but I ain't right back, though.
Yeah, but I ain't right back, though.
Mic drop. Let's go, Geno.
Yeah. That was pretty tough.
That was hard.
Yeah, that was pretty tough, but also it's Geno Smith. It wasn't like Pat Mahomes saying that shit. But we'll get back to this offense. Kenneth Walker, man. I don't know if you saw what Mike McDonald told the press about Kenneth Walker.
I didn't.
But they said, first off, Kenneth Walker shaved his head. That dude is completely skinhead now.
Oh, he's in a different mode.
He's in a different mode. But on a serious note, that dude, Mike McDonald, hinted at a bigger role for him. Okay. And they drafted Charbonnet in the second round out of Stanford. I do too, and I think he's a great player. However, Mike McDonald thinks that Kenneth Walker can do that passing role too, and he can. I've seen it. He's very dynamic catching the ball, And
I'll have to check more into that. I haven't seen too much.
He's very dynamic, man. I took him in one of my leagues when he just fell in my lap, and I think in the fifth or sixth round, he was just right there. But he's gonna have a big year, just barring injury, man. You can pretty much count on him missing 2 to 3 games because like an ankle or like a weird injury every single year. But then you look at this receiver core, you see DK Metcalf, Lockett, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba, man. Solid. They got a bunch of guys around Geno to kind of accentuate his talents. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is just a second coming of Tyler Lockett. He's got the same skill sets, and I think he's more dynamic in terms of just run after catch and stuff like that. He wasn't as explosive as I would think coming out of college. I think I was thinking he was going to be more shifty and more kind of just like straight line speed getting after people. But man, his hands are great. And they got Noah Fant too, who's a great tight end. But what are your thoughts on that, man?
I don't know how to feel about Njigba. He's got the athleticism to where he's like a smooth mover on the field, but when you watch him, he's not explosive like you said. But he's got ball skills, so it's like there's a skill set there to be had to win. I think like if he can be somewhat of a Keenan Allen, be that too, I'd be really interested to see if he could be something similar to that, because he's going to be the number 2 to Metcalf, and you cannot leave Metcalf one-on-one. I don't know if there's a DB in the league aside from maybe Sauce Gardner who can go, okay, yeah, let me go press you and just hang with him. I don't think there's another DB that can do it. I think the physical attributes that he has, you have to demand. He demands attention every single play with his size, speed, and ball skills. And it's just, I think with Njigba being a 2, can this offense be timing and have crossing routes with Njigba, and can he win his one-on-one to where he can get some more production? Because he was kind of buried, and he blamed OC for that. But I'm interested to see with an elevated role if he's actually able to step into that, or if he was just too high on himself.
Yeah, it remains to be seen, man. I get what you're saying about him. I think we had the same kind of outlook on him. Just crazy. Throw in the vicinity, he's going to catch it. It's just kind of getting that separation, man. And
great hands.
Yeah, man, he's very talented. But I think that's it for me in Seattle, man.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else you want to touch on?
I really want to see them use Charbonnet. I think that you drafted him. You got him on that rookie deal. I want to see some early downs from him and let Kenneth be that second, third, and counter play to where he's able to break off big runs and be your chunk play mover in the ground game, And I think Geno Smith has some untapped potential with his legs as well. I think that he's a good athlete to where if they could really just keep a defense guessing where the ball's going to go each play, you could really see some balance and identity to where I think this offense could be tough to stop. But I think that defensively, they're going to be sound, and offensively, we'll see how they draw up plays and get their guys the ball.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that defense over under Mike McDonald now and see what they got schemed up, because that could be fun to watch.
I'm excited to watch that defense.
But let's head over to my team now, the Arizona Cardinals, to finish out this NFC. Man, I was so excited for this team. I was, man. I'm not gonna lie. I was. Their over-under was 6.5. We're going to talk about it at the end of the video. But they just lost one of their most anticipated guys in BJ Oluwari.
Zay Jones?
No, not Zay Jones. Although that is a whole nother conversation that I can't.
I don't know what happened with him, you have to say.
We'll get into it. But BJ Oluwari, man, he's such a big loss. He's a guy at LSU, man. He's such. He was. I think he had 5 sacks last year, man. Everyone was thinking, all right, this is his year. Step up, be the guy, be the number 1 option. Let Darius Robinson kind of get his feet underneath him. And then he goes down with a torn meniscus, man. And it's just such a crushing feeling as a Cardinal fan where you're like, all right, we got Jonathan Gannon. We got this great defensive coach. We got Drew Petzing on the offense just dialing stuff over Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, I'm pumped to see this team. And then all of a sudden he goes down. You're like, oh, it's such a crushing feeling, man. And then on top of that, you see Darius Robinson goes down with a calf, and you're like, all right, dude, we got to sign someone, right? Do you hear that? We didn't do anything. There was literally no signs. Oh, no. There were hints from Austin Ford about, all right, the dust hasn't settled yet. There's going to be some moves to be made still. Nothing. Nada. We're rocking Bilal Nichols, Justin Jones, Dante Stills, and Zaven Collins going into Buffalo week 1. I can't even describe how like frustrating that is, especially with the cap that we have. And especially when you have a guy in Hassan Reddick who's holding out for the Jets. You could offer the Jets pretty much a cookie right now, and they'd trade for him right now.
I don't know if Hassan wants to be back with the Cardinals after how they set him up.
Hey, that was the old regime, though. That's the thing.
That was the old regime.
that you're gonna be reunited with Jonathan Gannon, the guy who he had 17 and a half sacks with, and just looking at this defense otherwise, man, you got some young guys at corner. They went corner heavy this draft. They got drafted Max Milton out of Rutgers. They drafted Elijah Jones, who's also hurt. He got hurt in the last preseason game out of Boston College.
Sweet.
Yeah, great. It's awesome. It's awesome, man. And then you got Garrett Williams and Sean Murphy-Bunting as your 2 starters right now. Yes. And I like them. I like Garrett Williams. I think he has potential. He's in a limited role last year, so let's see how he kind of steps up this year. But you got Budda Baker, who's always going to be just solid for you. You got Jalen Thompson, who's a great kind of gets into the box, hits people. And then you got a rookie named Dadrian Taylor-Demerson, man, and I'm pumped about him. A guy at Texas Tech, he flies around the ball, man. He was one of the preseason guys that won awards, I think, week 1 or 2. Very electric. That will probably end up letting Budda leave next year because his deal's up and we don't want to pay him again. So he could be a big free agent signing next year. But, man, like the loss of Olujuwari and Darius Robinson, it just hurts me. Because then we get to the most exciting thing about this offense. Sorry, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. You got K1 back, man, and he's a year removed from an ACL, and I think he's going to tear up the league this year. I think he's going to finish the top 5 quarterback, 4,000 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, add on a 7 or 8 rushing touchdowns. Yeah, I'm going there. I'm saying all that. I think with the game script constantly going to be the Cardinals either trailing or neck and neck with the team with how terrible this defense. It's going to be shootouts, man.
A lot of shootouts.
And K1 and them are strapped up. You got Drew Petzing, like I mentioned. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the best receiver prospects in the past decade, man. You got Michael Wilson, who had a crazy good year last year. And then you got Greg Dortch, who's literally K1's best friend. They're on the field with them all the time. We got a low-key appearance.
About the same size.
We got a low-key appearance right now. He just ran downstairs.
Kyler and Dortch about the same size, though.
Yeah, all right, bro. But I'm gonna ignore that that stray towards Kyler, because unlike your boy Bryce Young, Kyler is, like you said, a different athlete, man.
Way different athlete.
And there's the reason he got picked top 10 in the MLB and the NFL. So he's gonna have a huge year, man. James Conner and Trey Benson, great. I love the Trey Benson pick in the 3rd round. Angry runner, very dynamic. He's going to fill the shoes of James Conner. He's a very good complement backup to him. And you got Trey McBride, man. Trey McBride is one of the most electric tight ends that I've seen, and I'm so glad that we took him. And I think he's the perfect kind of safety valve for Kyler Murray, and you saw just how much these guys were working with each other in the offseason, going to Saguaro, just throwing the ball around, always with each other, kind of like Dortch. And you got the second year of Paris Johnson Jr., man. I think he kind of takes that second year jump. We signed Froholtz to an extension. Sorry, I'm losing my breath. I'm so excited about this Cardinals team on offense. We signed Froholtz to an extension. We signed Jonah Williams and Will Hernandez, Evan Brown. Our offense is stacked, man. But yeah, I'm excited.
I'm really excited to see the chemistry between Marvin Harrison and Kyler, because I think they'll be able to execute. I mean, Marvin can run routes any level of the field. You can count on him for anything, you know. And you got compliments as well over at the number 2 receiver with Michael Wilson. You got Greg Dortch, and hopefully when Zay Jones comes back, he was suspended for 5 games for personal conduct. I don't know what he did. I didn't hear about it.
There was a battery situation that he was involved in from like a year ago, and then you got Rashee Rice crashing, going 130, crashing into cars, and there's no penalty for him. At least not until next year.
We'll condemn Zay Jones then, and whatever. If he balls out, good for him. But hey, whatever. I don't know much about that situation. Hopefully he gets his mind right, because he's had some weird issues throughout the course of his career. I liked him coming out of college, but the main thing is you're looking at young guys stepping up. This team drafted. They're trying to build through the draft. You want to see Kyler show that he's back. You know, the offensive line's stable. You got weapons to where he can actually do something. You know, like he's not just surviving. You know, it's like you can actually have him go and have some chemistry throws with Marvin. You can have him be able to use athletic ability and make plays, not just survive behind an offensive line that's sketchy, you know? And it's like, I'm really excited to see if Trey Benson can step up in the offense and be someone who he kind of reminds me of, like a DeMarco Murray. He runs very similarly and very similar size and speed to a guy like DeMarco. And, I mean, you got to continue to build up this offensive line. And I think Trey can catch the ball as well. You got James Conner there to kind of be the early down tone setter and maybe even has receiving skills as well. But I think a guy like Trey Benson, if this offense is really going to be great, you got to have him step up. So, I mean, I think that they'll be able to sling it, but I think they need to be able to run the ball if they're going to be able to sustain success, any kind of success offensively or as winning team. You got to be able to run the ball. And I think that James Conner had a good season last year, but that was the best season of his career, and he's 30 years old. You know, he's had plenty of years in the league to do more, and he gets in the end zone, which is great, and you can have him be that guy, just like Zeke was when Zeke started to lose a little juice. But you need a guy like Trey Benson to step up, though, and be a playmaker for them.
Yeah, they also got Amari DiMercato behind him, who stepped in and kind of filled the need last year. Not saying he's going to be used that much unless someone goes down, but I like him. We also had Michael Carter Jr., which we ended up cutting, and I think the Jets picked him right back up.
He's fun. He's a fun player.
He was fun, and I think we should have kept him.
He's a little versatile back that you can have as like your second, third guy, and
exactly.
like you can feel okay with him being on the field.
Yeah, but we let him go, so that's cool. I think
And they trade away Rondale Moore for Desmond Ridder, and then realize Ridder sucks, and then cut him.
Yep.
Like, did Rondale just not want to be there? Like, why? I like Rondale Moore. I think he had a legit skill set. You can do so much with him, kind of like what the Bears are doing with Velus Jones, putting him in the backfield, using him on like gadget plays, special teams. Why would you trade a player like that for a QB that's not even going to be on the roster? And you don't even like the QB that you have as the backup that much. But you don't got anybody else because you traded away Rondale Moore for whatever, you know? Yeah. And that's I was just really disappointed to see them let him go. And I know that he's kind of redundant with the Greg Dortch, but I think that X factor type of player that can affect multiple realms of the team, not just offense, but special teams as well, I think they made a mistake.
Yeah, I think trading for Rondale, I know he went down with an injury, but, I mean, it's better than trading for a guy and then cutting him immediately. Like, that was just such a bad move from them. They learned their lesson, I think. They're yeah, I mean, when Zay Jones comes back, the receiver room's actually pretty stacked, I will say. I'm a big Michael Wilson guy.
They're
I think
4 deep.
For sure 4 deep. But I think Michael Wilson is such a perfect, like, complement second receiver to Marvin Harrison Jr. because don't forget Michael Wilson was winning last year. Towards the latter end when K1 came back, like he's got some juice and he looked good in training camp. But yeah, man, I think the reason they traded Ronald Moore is because he was more of a Keim guy, and they were kind of trying to bring their guys in.
That stinks, man.
Which kind of I mean,
that stinks.
It happens, man. It's just the league, but yeah, I mean, you brought up a good point with just special teams. Yeah,
he had so much talent, whether it's like special teams, offensive, like you just got to get the ball in the guy's hands, and you don't just throw away guys like that.
Exactly.
You don't just throw them away.
Yeah. But yeah, that kind of wraps up the Cardinals, man. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, they're going to be in shootouts. Kyler's got to show that he's back. I mean, the defense, there's nobody you feel good about in the front seven. I mean, this team is just hoping to throw speed and athleticism in the back end off behind the defensive line and hopes to just stop the pass. Like, they're just hoping they can hold up. But, I mean, when you don't got guys who can get after the quarterback, it's just going to be a long season. I find their D-tackle room kind of comical because they got all the old Bears players. They got Bilal Nichols. They got Kyrus Tonga. They got Justin Jones. And it's all cast-offs. And they're major role players, and it's like that's kind of concern. Starters.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They got the all-Bears DT room. It's pretty funny. But
I'm glad you think it's funny.
It is pretty funny. Because I've been there, man. It sucks.
Yeah.
But they're going to have a tough time getting after the quarterback. And when you got that, your offense better be putting up points or you're going to be at a loss. So.
But yeah, man, I think that kind of wraps up the NFC. I know I think we're at 2:15. I think it was solid, though. I think we went pretty in-depth by not going too much in. But yeah, man, I appreciate you guys listening. We're going to hit the AFC next, so stay tuned for that. Be sure to check out the Instagram, Let's Talk Ball _podcast, as well as the TikTok with that same handle. It's also available on YouTube if you want to check that out too. Let's Talk Ball dash podcast, all caps on YouTube. But yeah, man, Randy, I appreciate you going through these teams with me. It was fun, man.
Appreciate it, bro. I mean, I love talking ball whenever I can, dude. And I mean, put a lot of time into studying these teams and really seeing what they have going forward. And I mean, I feel like I got a really good feel. Hopefully we can win some bets off that info.
Yes, sir, bro. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.